KOIKIMEDIA, we're bringing the world closer to your doorstep.
KOIKIMEDIA, 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 we bringing the world closer to your doorstep.
KOIKIMEDIA, 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 we bringing the world closer to your doorstep.
Àwa sálára àgbáyédá, àwa ló láṣà àti èdè. Gbígbédè lárugẹ nílẹ̀ Oòduà o, àwa gangan ni bàbá.
KOIKIMEDIA, 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 we bringing the world closer to your doorstep.
They never sabi wetin we carry for her.
Until they move closer before they go sabi.
I said they never know wetin we carry for body.
Until they move closer before they go sabi.
Ọ̀kín lọ lọ́jà ẹyẹ, kìnìún ló ló lajú.
Ẹyẹ tó dorí kodò bí àdán ọgbẹ́jẹ lẹ́nu.
Ká ṣiṣẹ́ fún ilẹ̀ bàbá wa, ká ṣiṣẹ́ fún ìlú bàbá wa, ká jùmọ̀ sowọ́pọ̀ ká lè gbó Odùduwà.
Odùduwà kò bá lè gbé wá.
Ọmọ Odùduwà ṣe gírí, ẹ dìde fún ẹ̀tọ́ adúláwọ̀, ká lè jọ jùmọ̀ gbé délẹ̀ ìlérí, ká wálé gba ògo ilẹ̀ wa, ká ṣiṣẹ́ ká lè jọ gbàdé, ká lè gbàdé adé adúláwọ̀, àwa ni mọ̀lẹ̀ tí yóò tàn káàkiri.
Pé ọmọ Odùduwà ni wá.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwa là ń gbé tó lárugẹ.
Ètò tó pọ̀jù owó tí wàá máa ní.
Kásá ẹgbẹ́ polówó ọjà wá kájé gbùgbà yín jẹ.
Ètò tó pọ̀jù owó tí wàá máa ní.
À ń gbé tó lárugẹ, à ń gbàsà lárugẹ.
Ètò tó pọ̀jù owó tí wàá máa ní.
News and sports ẹ máa rí gbọ́.
Ètò tó pọ̀jù owó tí wàá máa ní.
Ọmọ Ìjẹ̀bú alárẹ̀ mi ló ní kí n máa ké tantan. KOIKIMEDIA, ọ̀rọ̀ lágbájúmọ̀ mi o, máa bá ṣẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ o. Ọmọ Yorùbá nìyẹn, ọmọ Yorùbá tata o. À ń gbádùn rẹ, ọmọ Ìjẹ̀bú alárẹ̀ mi, ṣẹ́yìn ló máa fi dìbò tẹ̀ mọ́lẹ̀ o. Ẹ̀yin lọ́mọ onígbò máa ń dé mádémádé, ẹ̀yin lọ́mọ onígbò máa wọ̀ o. Igbó máa wọ̀ gbàjòjì ò gbọ́dọ̀ wọ̀, àjòjì tó bá wọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ á dẹ̀dẹ̀ ní ẹbọra. Ẹ̀yin lọ máa náwó kóyìnbó tó dé, ìgbà tó yìnbó dé o, owó náà dẹ́ tún pọ̀ sí o. KOIKIMEDIA, ṣàwa ni bàbá. KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Àdáńtọ́ àtúnpèrègèdè.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Àwa là ń gbé tó lárugẹ, jẹ́ ká jọ gbọ́ o.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Àtúnjà fẹ́tọ̀ ilẹ̀ wa, fẹ́tọ̀ ilẹ̀ Yorùbá.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Ọmọ Oòduà ni wá o, tọkàntọkàn.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Ikú tí ó ṣe bí lébi òsì, àdìmú bàbá iyọ̀.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
We bring you work closer to your doorstep.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Afẹ́fẹ́ tó ń fẹ́ o, tó ń kan gíoko lára ni.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Àpèrègèdè Olódùmarè ló fún wa ṣe.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Gbogbo ayé ẹ gbọ́, àwa ni bàbá o.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Ẹ máa bọ̀ wá, ẹ gbé polówó ọjà yín wá o.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
Odùduwà la gbé dání, òtítọ́ la gbé dání.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
A kì í sọ̀dálẹ̀, a kì í sódìkẹta.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
A dúró tán, a tún pèrègèdè.
KOIKIMEDIA, àwọn ni bàbá.
KOIKIMEDIA, we bring you work closer to your doorstep. KOIKIMEDIA is around.
To give us latest.
Is around.
To give us latest.
Ladies and gentlemen,
ẹ mú kalẹ̀ sílẹ̀, ẹ tẹ́tí ẹ gbọ́ ètò tó kojú gbogbo.
ladies and gentlemen,
ẹ mú kalẹ̀ sílẹ̀, ẹ tẹ́tí ẹ gbọ́ ètò tó kojú gbogbo.
KOIKIMEDIA is around.
To give us latest.
ẹ wo ọmọ ìdùnnú, ẹ wo ọmọ alálùbáríkà, ẹ wo ògbólẹ̀ Yorùbá, ògbó gbogbo Áfíríkà tí à ń yẹ yóò ṣàjẹ́ padà, gbòòṣà, what best, this KOIKIMEDIA brings you work closer to your doorstep. Today is ready.
ọ̀dọ́ tá a jọ ń káàkiri ọ̀dọ́jọ́ ni wá ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ kí a fi àyè gba Fúlàní lórí ilẹ̀ àwọn bàbá wa ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ ká bú ọba mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ ká bú jòyè mọ́ nígbà tá a la fẹ́ jà fún àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ wa táwa ń kọ́kọ́ ń bú ọba tá à ń bú jòyè èmi náà ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ rí bọ́mọ pẹ́rẹ́ àmì padà ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ ká bú àgbààgbà kankan mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ bolóṣèlú kankan ẹ̀rù kálukú ń bẹ̀rù wọn ò lè sọ̀rọ̀ ọba ò lè sọ ìjòyè lè sọ ẹ jẹ́ ká ronú ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ ká bá àwọn bàbá jà mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ abú wọn mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ àṣẹ wọn àwọn ará pẹ̀lú wọn àwọn àgbà tán bá jó lóṣèlú tá a bá fẹ́ kọ́ wọn rìn wá lọ́wọ́ á pè wọn mọ́ra á gbé wọn mọ́ra ni à ní bú wọn mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ àṣejẹ̀gbọ́n ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ àdàlúrú a lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì ṣèjẹ̀gbọ́n a lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì yìnbọn a lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì dàlúrú gbogbo protest mo ṣe ní ìlú Nàìjíríà mi ò rí ibi tí mo ti ẹnìkan lè sọ pé mo pààyàn tàbí mo jó nǹkan náà tàbí mo bà nǹkan jẹ́ mo lọ písù torí pé olówó lèmi náà tí ò bá sólówó lára ń dì mọ́ gbogbo nǹkan tọ́lọ́run fún yẹn lọ́lọ́run fún mi mi ṣe tálákà tó dé pé mo dìde fún jà Yorùbá big man ni mí àwọn tó jẹ́ ọ̀rẹ́ mi tó súnmọ́ mi tó ní owó ní kí ni mo wá lọ bẹ̀ pé sọ́wọ́ ni mò ń fẹ́ ni kí n sọ yìí tí mo fẹ́ mo ní ìsọ̀rọ̀ owó àní ọ̀rọ̀ ìran mi ni mò ń sọ kí n wọ gbowó kí n gbéra kí n pé mò ń lọ ọ̀dọ̀ ọba àgbowó mò ń lọ ọ̀dọ̀ oníbodè òfin gbowó kí n kójó wọlé kọ́kàn mi balẹ̀ kí n dá wa mọ́tò kí n mọ́ rìn bọ̀ kí Fúlàní mọ́ da mi dúró ń títì kí n délé kí bàbá sọ pé kí n gbé tírélà sùn kí n mọ́ gbé lọ àwọn bàbá wo lè lóko mọ́ wọn ò lè lódò ẹ jẹ́ ká fọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀ ká ti àwọn bàbá wa lẹ́yìn ká dá security ti wá lẹ̀ ká sọ fún wọn kí wọ́n bá wa fọwọ́ tì í ká lé wọn kó nu oko wa ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ Jésù Olúwa wa.
And a very good morning and welcome once again to the Self-Determination platform. My name is OLAYOMI Koiki and also one of the campaigner for the right of the Yoruba people out of the contraction that was created by British in 1914. As we continue to educate and explain to many of our indigenous people, more reason why we need to come out of Nigeria before we all entrapped in the contraction that was created. Mo kí gbogbo wa pé ẹ káàárọ̀ níbi tí ẹ bá ti ń gbọ́ wa tí ẹ ti pé wò wá, and depending on the time zone. It's exactly 12 minutes past 4 a.m. in London, where I am transmitting from. Lákọ̀ọ́kọ́, ẹ jẹ́ kí n ṣàlàyé fún many that have been very, very concerned that the Yoruba nation movement is already dead. It was never dead. It's a movement. And when something is a movement, that means that it will take some time. It will take a lot of work to be able to get the message. And ṣàlàyé fún nílé. Most importantly, most of our loved ones tí wọ́n ń gbé ní Nigeria àtàwọn tí wọ́n ń gbé níta tí kò yé wọn pé in the interest and the benefit of ìran ọmọ Yorùbá, we should not have anything to do with Nigeria. But ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wọn, they are asking a lot of questions. Question tó dẹ̀ ń bi wá ni pé ọ̀nà wo àti pé báwo gan lẹ ṣe fẹ́ kúrò nínú Nàìjíríà tí wọ́n so papọ̀. Lákọ̀ọ́kọ́, sísopọ̀ Nigeria, it has to do with the fraudulent colonial masters that decided that ibi tó bá nígbà tó dé was not meant to be like that, and they changed the whole structure. Many also have asked kí ni àǹfààní tó wà nísìn that tó fi mú wa kúrò nínú ibi tá wà láti sọ pé a fẹ́ dá dúró as an independent country. The Yoruba Nation campaign, lákọ̀ọ́kọ́, is not a violent campaign. I want us to specifically get this right. Under the leadership of Professor Adebanji Akitoye, this movement has remained one of the most peaceful movements compared to so many movements around the world. So when people come out and say that we are committing crime against the federal government, the question we should ask is, what crime are we committing? Àti pé níbo la ti commit crime yẹn? Because we know that under the United Nations Charter, under the European Union Charter, under the African Union Charter, Nigeria is a signatory to all different laws, international law, that bind Nigeria, that at some point in the creation of a country or in an existence of people, some people might stand up and say they need or ask for their needs. We are not begging anybody for this. It is our fundamental human right to say that we don't want to be part of what the British created. The British knew that the creation of Nigeria at some point will be questioned, which is what we are doing today. We are literally questioning what the British created and why. I am not an English, neither am I an Italian. I am not a German. I am not a French. I am a Yoruba man. But there is something that has changed, which is my true identity. And that, for me, is a theft. The British stole our identity and created a false narrative to give us what we are literally being told that we are today. This is what we are challenging. And like I said, under the leadership of Professor Adebanji Akitoye, the leader of the Yoruba self-determination movement, we have not done anything literally against any international community, either those that are currently having mutual or relationship with the present day Nigeria. Yes, at some point, all this country would have to sit back and ask whether it is on their own interest for us to remain in Nigeria or on our own interest. I'm talking about every country that has representative in Nigeria. It does not matter whether it's America, whether it's Japan, Canada, India, whether it's Brazil, Cuba, Jamaica, whatever country that is having a current relationship with Nigeria, at some point would have no other choice than to speak to the real indigenous people that owns the territorial ground known as the southwest part of Nigeria. And it is going to happen. How long, how soon it's going to happen is what nobody knows. But this is going to happen. Some have also questioned who we are for us to decide on behalf of many of our loved ones back home, or our loved ones that are also residing outside Nigeria. My question is, we are the Yorubas that believe for us to question that, that critical part, that either we are true Nigerians or not. We also have so many people that wants to destroy the movement due to their own selfish interest. People that wants to infiltrate the movement and make us look as terrorists. And I'm talking directly now to Dupe Onitiri. You could try to say whatever trash regarding what you are currently saying, because the Yoruba doesn't have a country yet. Officially, there is nowhere or any document that indicates in around the world till date that the country called Yoruba Nation is currently existing. Nigeria is currently existing, but it will have to collapse, or it will have to dissolve, or it will have to break for many other countries to come out, just like Yugoslavia break away in 1992, and the world did not come to an end. Yugoslavia was also almost 4 years ahead of Nigeria in 1918. But after so many years of living together, they decided to go their separate ways. Separation is not a war. It is just for us to sit down around the table and discuss the way forward for those of us that the British under the colony decided to merge us together with what is currently known as Nigeria. Secondly, I've heard a lot of you say that Igboho is a criminal. And my question is, what warrants Igboho to be a criminal? What has he done for us, those calling him a criminal? Is it an offense for someone to stand up and rise against the marauders, either in the government or the external force that are trying everything possibly best to destroy who we are? If many Yoruba people refuse to stand up and Igboho stood up, the question is, what has been his offense? What crime has he committed under international law? His house was invaded by a Fulani kingpin known as the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, dead or alive. Also the Vice President, Yemi Osibajo. These two were currently in power when Igboho's house was invaded. Yet, everyone kept muted because it was in favor of some of those that wanted to keep Nigeria either through proxies or through an entity. It was labeled with all kind of atrocities. The federal government invaded his house on the 1st of July 2021 with a false information that Igboho was preparing a jihad with the federal government, knowing fully well that Igboho is not the one creating jihad. We have more than 6 different terrorist organizations operating in Nigeria, and yet the federal government refused to do anything to defend innocent Nigerians, including the Yorubas. Igboho decided to stand firm and ask the question, why is our governors refusing to protect innocent lives? There are catalogs of different crimes committed, not just on the Yorubas, including the rest of Nigerians. And that went on and on and on for a very long time until Igboho stood out and said, enough is enough. That is his offense against the federal government. They decided that the only option is to kill him, so that by taking him out, that will continue the Fulanization agenda on the territorial ground of Yoruba land. Buhari traveled to Morocco, if I can remember, and literally said that anyone can come into Nigeria. Is that how British allow everybody to come into their territorial ground? Because I know that the immigration is tightening up on a daily basis to stop the boat. Because those that are coming through the boat channel from France to UK, we don't know who they are. There could be pedophile, drug dealers, traffickers. There could be terrorists. And this is every reason why British government is doing everything within their power to stop the boat. But yet, Buhari, a Fulani man, decided to tell all Fulanis around the world to invade Nigeria. And there become so many of them that on a daily basis, we have now become the species for them to kidnap and collect ransom for. There's catalogs of different videos, pictures, articles that indicated that people are paying ransom. Even people end up raising funds through the social media to enable the criminal activities to continue. My question is, what has Igboho done to warrant his death by the same Fulani Attorney General of Federation, Malami? Malami is also part of the crime, just like Buratai was a criminal that used the position of the Chief of Army Staff to not just only enrich himself, but to create havoc. The last administration was just a disaster. The administration of President Muhammadu Buhari and Yemi Osinbajo was a disaster that set us back 50 years behind, according to the former governor of Ekiti State, Fayose. So many indicators said that Nigeria is a failed country, a country that cannot provide adequate security for their citizens is a failure. But yet, rather than the true question to be asked, if all these will continue, then should we be one? That question is what people are running away from. Should we remain one Nigeria? Or if we're going to remain one Nigeria, under what terms and conditions? We've had many past and present governors, president, said it categorically clear that it is only the British intention to keep us together. People have asked for a discussion, but yet everybody's running away from that discussion. The discussion came back again after Professor Adebanji Akintoye decided that in the interest of the Yoruba people, we should have nothing to do anymore with Nigeria. A 35-page document was released for every one of us to go and study. But rather for us to study that, people started questioning whether Professor Banji Akintoye have the right to take us out from the contraction created by British in 1914, known as the fraudulent amalgamation. Professor Banji Akintoye did not just release a 35-page manual that detailed why we need to leave Nigeria. Let me give you the bit of background to what Professor Banji Akintoye told us regarding either we choose the noble path today or at some point we might all sink with what is known as Nigeria. But today, we are now hearing many of our comrades thinking that we can go into the ballot box and rectify the damage, even though evidence proved that the British rigged the first ever election in Nigeria in 1959. If the British knew that Nigeria, that also they are part of the creation, should we start questioning why Britain decided to be part of those that set up the 1953 Constitution? The 1953 Constitution was drafted in United Kingdom on behalf of those known as Nigerians. And even though many Nigerians probably does not even know that the drafting of the 1953 Constitution was all put together here in the United Kingdom. This is the reason why this platform has decided to educate and bring to speed many information that many of us around the world might not know. This is the reason why KOIKIMEDIA is also one of those among many media championing the cause of the right of the Yoruba people. This is the reason why KOIKIMEDIA refused to back out, so that we can give as many information to support and educate our people. The British never wanted such, but it is too late because of the kind of media that we have today. What you're looking in front of you on the screen right now is what is known as the Latin Constitution of 1954. Also, to my other side is the 35-page manual written by Professor Adebanji Akintoye, telling us categorically how we would come out of Nigeria through the peaceful means. Till date, among all our campaign in the southwest of Nigeria, our campaign is not in the north. Neither our campaign is in the southeast. Our campaign has remained within the territorial part of what is known as Yoruba land. We have not moved out of our territory to go and campaign in the north. But we have seen people that have come down to the southwest and created havoc in disguise as herdsmen. These are not herdsmen. These are criminals, terrorists. Let's first touch on the Latin Constitution. What do we know by the Latin Constitution and who drafted this constitution? Who are those behind such a constitution? And can we say that Nigeria is still being operating as an corporate entity, as we have said so many times? Many Nigerians today do not have adequate information on why we should never keep Nigeria again. Let me first give us those behind these fraudulent constitution. These are the men. You can see that they don't resemble me, neither do they resemble anyone in the territorial ground of Nigeria. These are the Englishmen working on behalf of the colony as at the time that drafted the 1954 constitution here in United Kingdom. A particular one that we are interested in is a man called OLAYOMI. OLAYOMI, 1st Viscount Chandos, KG, DSO, MC, PC, was born on the 15th of March 1893. He died on the 21st of January 1972. He was a British businessman from the Leighton family who was brought into the government during the Second World War, holding a number of ministerial posts. Let's give us a bit of his background. He was born in Mayfair in London. Lord Chandos was the son of the retired Honorable Alfred Leighton, the younger son of George Leighton, the 4th Baron Leighton. His mother was his father's second wife, Edith, daughter of Archibald Belfort. He was educated at Eton. Eton today remains one of the top-notch colleges in the United Kingdom. He also went to Trinity College in Cambridge. He served in the Grenadian Guards in the First World War, where he met Winston Churchill. Many of us will know Winston Churchill was a British statesman, soldier, and a writer who twice also served as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1940 to 1945 during the Second World War. He was awarded the Distinguished Service of Order, the Military Cross. From 1947 to 1955, he served as the first president of the Farnborough Bowling Club, Hampshire, in his Aldershot parliamentary constituency. As we have said so many times, Nigeria is a business center. Leighton was also into business. In August 1920, Leighton was invited to join the British Metal Corporation, a firm established at the instigation of the British government with a long-term strategic objective of undermining German domination of the metal trade. The question is, where would Britain get their metal from if not from Africa or Nigeria precisely? British Empire, self-supporting in non-ferrous metals. After a brief apprenticeship, Leighton served as a general manager of the corporation and subsequently as the managing director. The reason why I'm giving you the background of this gentleman is because we will come back to while his name was also used as the 1954 Constitution called Leighton Constitution. These are the history that have been distorted, that many Nigerians do not have understanding today. It became one of the small group of individuals who, through their multiple interlocking dictatorship, effectively controlled the global metal trade. Take note of that word, global. When we ask for the full dictionary meaning of global, we can categorically say global, something relating to the whole world or wide or worldwide. So that literally means that it is not today that people have tried to control the world. The world remains being controlled. But before we go further into the discussion of LYTTLETON, let me remind us again and again that the Yoruba people are not going to back out. Neither are we going to back down on our right to self-determination. These are all the countries created for the selfish interest of Britain during the colony. For 200 years, Britain controlled almost all these dot of country, including America, that decided to fight in 1776 when America fought Britain to take back their freedom. It was not given on the platter of gold. They fought so that they can get it back. And today, many of Yorubas that reside in America that are now questioning people like us should check whether if America did not fight for their freedom in 1776, you will be able to live in America holding an American passport when we are also asking you to support the right of the Yoruba people on a noble global path to exit the shithole country that was created by Britain for their own selfish interest. This was said by one of our comrades, known as Comrade George Akinola, in 2007. Let's listen.
Impediment to Yoruba development is the impediment to Odua development. Without Nigeria, we won't be where we are. 1962, we were far ahead of South Korea and North Korea. We were far ahead of China even. We had television before France. We had radio before South Africa. Now look at where we are today. I think it's a shame that even any Yoruba man can be talking about restructuring at this point in time. What are we restructuring? This country that is already shot to pieces? I don't think that's what we want. But they are always talking about giving Nigeria a chance. The patience of Yoruba with Nigeria has come to an end.
But many believe that it has not come to an end, and that is why we are still having issues in resolving how we will end up away from Nigeria. He was not the only one that spoke. We also have it under evidence that a former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, spoke during a forum after he decided that he's no longer the president, that he has a better voice to tell the world the true picture of who Britain are. Let's listen to him again.
Thinking about how we've been having this conversation about the unity of Nigeria. And I reflect back at some of the prominent statements made by some of our founding leaders. And I feel that probably this will help us to have a conversation on the Nigerian unity. I just brought four, not to bore you. First, and I quote, not my statement, Nigeria is not a nation. It's a mere geographical expression. There are no Nigerians in the same sense as there are English, Welsh, or French. The word Nigerian is merely a distinctive appellation to distinguish those who live within the boundaries of Nigeria from those who do not. This is accredited to Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the former Prime Minister of the Western region. The second one, and I quote, "It is true that we politicians always delight in talking loosely about the unity of Nigeria. 60 years ago, there was no country called Nigeria. What is now Nigeria consisted of several large and small communities, all of which were different in their outlooks and beliefs. The advent of the British and that of Western education has not materially altered the situation, and the many and varied communities have not knit themselves into a composite unit." This is accredited to Sir Amadu Bello, former Premier of Northern Region. The third, and I quote, "Since 1914, the British government has been trying to make Nigeria into one country, but the Nigerian people themselves are historically different in their backgrounds, in their religious beliefs and customs, and do not show themselves any sign of willingness to unite. The Nigerian unity is only a British intention for the country."
Again, should we remain one Nigeria, knowing fully well that evidence continued to pinpoint that Britain knew that there is no way we can remain as one, but yet went on to force Nigeria on every single Nigerian? Maybe we should also listen to another individual that gave us a background why we should exit Nigeria now, because the existence of Nigeria is only in favor of just a very, very few. And those are the individuals, groups of people that want to keep us together for their own selfish interest. And this is what we are challenging. And we will continue to challenge that until the dissolution of Nigeria. Nigeria will never be a country. It was never a country, and yet many does not want it. Let's listen again from the perspective of another individual known as Dr. Ugu.
They wanted to be separate from the country that the British Empire had imposed on us, which was this country of Nigeria, where they kind of took a bunch of independent nations who don't have anything to do with each other, don't even speak each other's language, don't relate. Many of them were even enemies and warring at the time, smushed them all together and drew these arbitrary lines around them and called them countries and named those countries.
Right.
And then said, now y'all get along and do a country for us and be a union for us. And then go through, contentious, bloody independence processes that never really yield any real independence. You're still part of a commonwealth afterwards.
True.
And you have the eternal meddling in your affairs and the eternal extraction of your resources and the eternal fomenting of divisiveness and infighting in order to be able to control you. This is what an oppressor does, a colonizer does. These are tactics and strategies of dominance.
Right.
We were subjected to that as a larger unit of Nigeria. And then when the Igbo people said, we want our own thing, let's go and do that. Well, it so happened to be that the territory that this new country of Biafra was going to be in included very, very rich oil reserves. And the British were not going to let go of that.
Wow.
And the people that they had put in power, their puppet Nigerian governments weren't going to do that either, because they needed it for the Nigerian project.
Right.
And Britain needed it for its own interests and uses. So Great Britain got directly involved in this civil war and in the war for independence, and decided that they would do everything to make sure that Biafra did not go.
Wow.
And this everything meant directly funding genocide of the people of Biafra.
These are all evidence that indicated. Now, let's move a little bit forward. We are looking into the background of a gentleman called Oliver Layton, also known as the Oliver Layton 1954 Constitution. We've been telling you a bit of his background. We are currently where we know that he's also a business career, but he was also directorship, effectively controlled the global metal trade during that era. On the outbreak of war in September 1939, he was appointed controller of the non-ferrous metals. He set about exploiting. Let's get the full meaning of exploiting. When we talk about exploiting, which is exactly what is still being done on Africa, Nigeria, and the Yoruba people today. The word exploit. Exploit. Make full use of or derive benefit from a resources. The British or the British system have exploited Africa. Just as French have exploited Africa. Just like America have exploited Africa. Just as many of the European countries have exploited. But when we go into the full meaning of exploit, are we being exploited as Yoruba people today? And is it right for us to sit back while we are being exploited? Is it right for us not to do nothing when many Yoruba people are being exploited? Who are those exploiting us today through our resources? Why do we have vast amount of resources up to gold in Osun State, yet we have to travel to Dubai and become a slave? Or for those that have the wealth to do their shopping in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. It is part of the exploit that many of us have left the offshore of Nigeria as the second-class refugee around the world, where we have now been given the right to stay and work. But what about those that are still being exploited by telling us that Yoruba is not an official language, but we should keep to English? Is part of the exploitation. When we do then ask, what does exploiting someone mean? I'm asking, are you being exploited as Nigerian, or are you being exploited as your true identity? The full meaning of that goes like this: to treat someone unfairly in order to make money or get advantage. That is what is happening in Nigeria today. Many Nigerians are being exploited, even though they might not know. Many Nigerians are trapped, even though they might not understand. That is why we keep seeing all kind of different videos and different messages from those back home, because they are not too sure that they are being exploited. But the moment someone treats someone unfairly in order to take money or get advantage, you are being exploited. Many of us today that are Yorubas knows fully well that we have vast amount of resources under the ground, yet we are still as poor as so much of us cannot feed or have a better welfare system. Many àwọn èèyàn wa tó wà nílé bá ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ báyìí, wọ́n mọ̀ pé wọ́n exploit àwọn ni. Tó bá mọ̀ pé wọ́n exploit àwọn ni, ìjà tá gbé dání àjọ máa ṣe ni. Ìdí tí a ṣe ń sọ fáwọn tó wà nílé ni pé until you all wake up, make una wake up, that nobody will give you freedom without fighting for it. Either through a kind of discussion in this part of Koiki Media and many of such. You are also being exploited by other medias not to understand the true picture of why you need to gain your freedom today. It's part of the exploitation. Because the moment you know that you are being exploited, just like some of us have known already, and that is why if you go back to what Babakitoye said, he says that towards Yoruba self-determination, the Yoruba nation chooses the noble path to its noble goal. We've heard about so much of what the late Jeremiah Obafemi Awolowo did during the regional government. You will not be given a regional government as it was in 1957-58 before we were told lies to go into a fraudulent election, knowing fully well that that election was not going to be backed by the British as they were leaving power to the northern part of Nigeria. And there's also evidence to back that. We will just give you a sneak view of that in a minute. Today, many Nigerians are trying to go into the ballot box and fix something that some have exploited that led to the death of Ken Saro-Wiwa by the late Sonny Abacha, while Shell continued to exploit us. Ken Saro-Wiwa rose up just as Igboho has done today. Ken Saro-Wiwa was just one of those Nigerian writer. He was born October 10, 1941. He died at the age of 54, just as we have said so many times that according to the same criminal international organization that would tell us that the life expectancy of an average Nigerian today can no longer be more than 50 years old. And I keep saying all the time that your life expectancy will remain like that. It's not even up to 54. You can see that Ken Saro-Wiwa survived just 2 years or a year more than the life expectancy. My question to those of you this morning that are listening to this broadcast, are you likely to survive to be 54 years old? Because if Ken Saro-Wiwa was not allowed to live up to 60 years old, we might end up not all be 60. It is not my wish for you not to be 60 years old. But according to what they are telling us, knowing fully well that they are the same sort of people exploiting us, the more you get exploited, the more you are not likely to raise up to 60 years old. And I can give us some of those that have never even been up to 40. Let's look at Tolulope Arotile. Tolulope Arotile was the flying officer known as Tolulope Oluwatoyin Sarah Arotile, was the first ever. I want us to take note of that. The same system trained her based on the fact that she was an intelligent Yoruba girl from Kogi State in Okun. She was not just an ordinary. She was a special breed by Eledumare. But the Fulani agenda was to make sure that the Yorubas would not survive up to 54. Tolulope Arotile was a female combat helicopter pilot in the Nigerian Air Force. She contributed significantly to combat operation against insecurity, but some of those Sultan of Sokoto and the criminal oligarchs of the West knew that Tolulope Arotile would kill many terrorists when she goes with that helicopter. Guess what? Tolulope Arotile was killed by the same Nigerian government, just as Dele Giwa was killed the same way in 1986 by Babangida. Today, Tolulope Arotile died just at the age of 24. She never gave birth. She never reproduced another generation. These are part of what we call exploitation. Many of you today in Nigeria, I'm talking to the Yorubas, your life is currently locked Babangida knew the importance of Delegiwa as far back as 1980. It took him out. Delegila was well read, just as many Yoruba today are well read, but you are all living in a impoverished life. You can no longer live the better life that would have been the way Eledumare wanted us to live. Let's look at somebody else again. Bamishe Anyonwola was another Yoruba beautiful girl. Till date, Bamishe was 2 years that she died in the hands of criminal in Lagos State that used her for ritual purposes. Bamishe left a mother. You can see the mother crying there. Bamishe left brothers, father. Bamishe's parents are still alive, but Bamishe did not survive 52 years old. She was murdered. She died at the age of 22, same year, more a little bit than Tolulope Arutile. Let's look at another one. Jumoke Oyeleke. Jumoke Oyeleke died during the July 3rd rally, a peaceful rally. She was killed by the Nigerian security. She died at the age of 25. Till date, nothing has been done. Jumoke Oyeleke was not even part of those in the rally ground. She's a Yoruba woman. She was selling the little speedent to keep her family together. Jumoke Oyeleke killed by the police bullet at the Yoruba Nation rally. The question I'm asking, is this how the British kill me when I go out and protest against whatever I feel like? The question is no. Why then are the British or Britain created a false narrative to tell many Yoruba people to remain in one Nigeria, but yet, as we know, maybe we should not be a little bit biased. Let's go to the NSAS. We knew that during the NSAS, it was not just a Yoruba that was killed. You can see that some of your artists, this is Burna Boy, they pretend to be part of those that love humanity, because when the pressure cooks, people like them come out and tell you that they are part of Nigeria, but they are not speaking for Nigerians. It is just under pressure that people like them come out. Today, many of us have asked question, should we remain Nigeria? 1 minute.
Gbogbo ẹ̀yin ọmọ ọ̀dọ́ tá a jọ ń káàkiri ọ̀dọ́jọ́ ni wá, ẹ má jẹ́ kí a fi àyè gba Fúlàní lórí ilẹ̀ àwọn bàbá wa. Ẹ má jẹ́ ká bú ọba mọ́, ẹ má jẹ́ ká bú jòyè mọ́. Nígbà tá a la fẹ́ jà fún àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ wa, táwa ń kọ́kọ́ ń bú ọba, tá à ń bú jòyè. Èmi náà ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ rí, bó mo pera mi padà. Ẹ má jẹ́ ká bú àgbààgbà kankan mọ́, ẹ má bú olóṣèlú kankan. Ẹ̀rù kálukú ń bẹ̀rù wọn ò lè sọ̀rọ̀, ọba ò lè sọ, ìjòyè lè sọ. Ẹ jẹ́ ká ronú. Ẹ má jẹ́ ká bá àwọn bàbá jà mọ́, ẹ má jẹ́ á bú wọn mọ́, ẹ má jẹ́ á ṣe wọ́n àwọn ará pẹ̀lú wọn. Àwọn àgbà tó bá jó lóṣèlú, tá a bá fẹ́ kọ́ wọn rìn wá lọ́wọ́, á gbé wọn mọ́ra, á gbé wọn mọ́ra ni, à ní bú wọn mọ́. Ẹ má jẹ́ á ṣèjẹ̀gbọ́n, ẹ má jẹ́ á dàlúrú. A lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì ṣèjẹ̀gbọ́n, a lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì yìnbọn, a lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì dàlúrú. Gbogbo protest mo ṣe ní ìlú Nàìjíríà, mi ò rí ibi tí mo ti ẹnìkan lè sọ pé mo pààyàn tàbí mo jó nǹkan náà tàbí mo bà nǹkan jẹ́. Mo lọ písù torí pé olówó lèmi náà tí ò bá sólówó lára ń dì mọ́. Gbogbo nǹkan tọ́lọ́run fún yẹn lọ́lọ́run fún mi. Mi ṣe tálákà tó dé pé mo dìde fún jà Yorùbá. Big man ni mí, àwọn tó jẹ́ ọ̀rẹ́ mi tó súnmọ́ mi tó ní owó ní kí ni mo wá lọ bẹ̀. Pé sọ́wọ́ lè mò ń fẹ́ ni kí n sọ yìí tí mo fẹ́, mo ní ìsọ̀rọ̀ owó. Àní ọ̀rọ̀ ìran mi ni mò ń sọ. Kí n wọ gbowó, kí n gbéra, kí n pé mò ń lọ ọ̀dọ̀ ọba àgbowó, mò ń lọ ọ̀dọ̀ oníbodè òfin gbowó, kí n kójó wọlé kọ́kàn mi balẹ̀, kí n dá wa mọ́tò kí n mọ́ rìn bọ̀, kí Fúlàní mọ́ da mi dúró ń títì, kí n délé kí bàbá sọ pé kí n gbé tírélà sùn kí n mọ́ gbé lọ. Àwọn bàbá wo lè lóko mọ́, wọn ò lè lóńdò. Ẹ jẹ́ ká fọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀ ká ti àwọn bàbá wa lẹ́yìn, ká dá security ti wá lẹ̀, ká sọ fún wọn kí wọ́n bá wa fọwọ́ tì í, ká lé wọn kó nu oko wa. Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́, Jésù Olúwa wa. gbogbo ẹ̀yin ọmọ ọ̀dọ́ tá a jọ ń káàkiri ọ̀dọ́jọ́ ni wá ẹ má jẹ́ kí a fi àyè gba Fúlàní lórí ilẹ̀ àwọn bàbá wa ẹ má jẹ́ ká bú ọba mọ́ ẹ má jẹ́ ká bú jòyè mọ́ nígbà tá a la fẹ́ jà fún àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ wa táwa ń kọ́kọ́ ń bú ọba.
Once again, a very good morning and welcome to the live transmission. It's 5 o'clock in the morning as we continue the awareness campaign and the benefit. As I'm taking us into all this discussion, I want us to keep our mind on the real discussion. What is the crime against we, the Yorubas, that have rise up to stop the crime against humanity? I've given us few names, and we can go on and on up to the answers. Like I said, 2010, 2020, we saw how the Nigerian security killed many innocent Nigerians because of the brutality of the SARS, known as the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. My question is this the same way that the British police kill individuals when they come out and protest? We knew that even the Britain was sponsoring or supporting through mechanism of Nigerian police as at the time all this was happening. So I'm going to just take us back to the real conversation where we are. I've given us names and we can go on and on and on. But what are we truly fighting for today? Are we fighting because we hate Igbos? Are we fighting because we hate Hausas? Are we fighting because we hate each other? No. We are fighting because some individuals are taking advantage of the natural resources that belongs to us, given to us by our own creator, yet being told that we don't have access to it through the fraudulent system set up in Nigeria today. And like I said earlier, if we do nothing today, the next generation will suffer more. We are not the only countries around the world where people are rising up and demanding a review of what was set up in what is known as their country today. We are never going to back down. Self-determination is our right. And we are not the only one asking for that right. Let's listen to this.
Other countries were refused at first, but we have to remember, and this is a really important point, that self-determination is an inalienable international right and a law as well. And other countries will recognise Scotland's democratic choice expressed at the ballot box. They will recognise that because that is the route that many other countries have taken in order to become independent. And just to make that point, that international law is very pragmatic on that point. So we should have...
International law is very pragmatic about that. I'm going to play it one more time. For those of you that are asking whether we should abandon the Yoruba Nation campaign so that we can favor the criminal exploitation on us. Every now and then we hear that we have the largest bitumen, but the question is we don't have the good roads. It is part of the exploitation. So who is taking the bitumen out of the Yoruba territory? Who is taking our timbers out of Yoruba territory? Who are those exploiting us that led to the innocent death in Bodija in January 16, where there was a bomb blast that led to many buildings and life as we speak to you today? It is because someone came from Mali and decided to set up an illegal mining, then end up using that same illegal mining to bomb us. And you can see and ask your question, does this not look like a war zone to you? This has been going on for decades. And these are part of what we call exploitation. And it will continue until we put a full stop to it. And the only way we can put a full stop to these atrocities is to gain our own noble path. So when we go back into the manual of the Yoruba self-determination struggle for all Yoruba self-determination advocates at home and in diaspora, written by Professor Adebanji Akintoye, let me quickly give us an introduction of such a document. And the introduction goes like this. The following is a guide or manual for the use of all Yoruba patriots engaged in the struggle for Yoruba self-determination. It supplies to all supporters of the self-determination struggle the kind of information that they will need to prosecute the struggle, and a supply guide to the struggle strategies and methods. Though this manual was motivated in the context of one main organization, Ilana Omo Odua, it is meant to be a fighting manual for all persons and organizations that are engaged in the struggle for Yoruba self-determination and sovereignty. Our struggle is not just based on Chief Sunday Igboho. Our struggle is based on a noble path or a noble goal. Chief Sunday Igboho is just an extraordinary individual that stood upright against the marauders that are ready to exploit us. And we will continue. Not just pray for him, we will defend him. We will make sure that we protect him against the evil of the world. Very importantly, it is based on the fundamental character of the Yoruba nation as a civilization building nation. We can be an independent country and also being stopped to be exploited. The IMF will continue to exploit the current state of Nigeria and other African countries just like the World Bank. As long as your administration of this current government listen to the IMF, nothing is going to change in Nigeria until the dissolution of Nigeria. And Nigeria will dissolve because Nigeria will not be the first country to dissolve. Yugoslavia dissolved in 1992 as Nigeria was preparing for a fake election that was never going to come true. Abiola was deceived to go and contest by the same marauders known as the Fulani terrorists, from Babangida to the rest of them. Babangida knew that he was never going to give power to MKO Abiola, but yet Abiola went out and campaigned, and it was one of the most freest elections that we've ever witnessed in Nigeria. You will never get such again. That is why the people known as obedient are so pained that they are ready now to create havoc from intelligence that we are getting against the current administration, because they believe that Bola Tinubu's election was a rigged election by Yakubu Mahmoud, another criminal from the northern part of Nigeria. I am not here to defend a criminal Tinubu, but I am here to say that it does not matter how many elections that you do, you will not have a very stable election, because the British has always preferred the election to be rigged. And that is why Harold Smith told us categorically that election in Nigeria was rigged. But we can stop Nigeria just like Yugoslavia got stopped in 1992. Yugoslavia was also existing from 1918 up to 1992. And if we calculate how many years is that, 1918 was when Yugoslavia was set up. It stopped being Yugoslavia in 1992. That is 74 years. Nigeria has gone past its due date, And when you have a foodstuff in the house that is gone past its due date and you consume that, you could be putting yourself and the life of your family in danger. We've seen it and we've heard that in some remote part of Nigeria, when something crawls into your stew and you are not aware and you consume that stew, you are likely to die. The reason many Nigerians would die before the dissolution of Nigeria is because Nigeria has expired. President Bola Tinubu does not have the capacity to fix the shithole country called Nigeria because it is a dead on arrival. He's wasting his time. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will not be able to do such because Tinubu knew that Buhari killed Nigeria 50 years backwards. But Tinubu also, as another criminal, is ready to eat out of Nigeria through his proxies from Dele Alake to his chief of army staff to his chief of staff, Gbajabiamila, another criminal that told us at the beginning of this administration, Gbajabiamila came out and said that Tinubu will only be able to fix Nigeria by the will of Almighty Allah. And I asked Gbajabiamila, what about those of us that doesn't believe in Allah? This is what Gbajabiamila told us there.
The weight of Nigeria is not the weight that any normal, ordinary human being can carry, except with the help of Almighty Allah.
So if the weight of Nigeria cannot be carried by any ordinary human being, the question then is, it is right for us to dissolve the shithole country rather than waiting for the Almighty Allah. I don't believe in Allah. I believe in Ifa. So is Gbajabiamila forcing Allah on me because the weight of Nigeria is just too much for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? These are the criminal proxies. Gbajabiamila was also one of the criminals that took money in America, a client money, and returned to Nigeria and set up a political party of his choice. Let's come back again to the conversation. My name is OLAYOMI Koiki. We know that ethnic cleansing will continue should you remain in Nigeria, but we can dissolve Nigeria just as Yugoslavia was dissolved 74 years after their existence. But many Nigerians refuse because they are hoping that one day they will also become one of the crazy politicians and buy bulletproof cars and have money and spend from the same crime against other ethnic indigenous people. And we are not tribes. I am a Yoruba man, proud Yoruba man. It is Britain that created why we are called Nigeria today, and we will break that shithole country from outside Nigeria. Educating many of you, you will get so much angry, you will have to come out at the appropriate time and stop the menace. It was done before by other countries. We will do the same thing, but it can still be done in a noble global path. That is, if only our politicians are ready. Let's listen to this as well.
Every one of us must rise up. The armed forces are not neutral. They collude. They collude. They collude with the armed bandits that kill people, kill Nigerians. They facilitate their movements. They cover them. If you are depending on the armed forces to stop the killings, you will all die one by one.
Many of such evidence still exist. But the major one is, what will be the benefit should Yoruba people pull out of Nigeria? Do we have upper edge? Yoruba that thinks that election can resolve this problem. We've now seen that election cannot resolve it because Tinubu is now the president, but yet it has not put food on your table. We've seen Tinubu become the president, yet it has created much more tension between the Southeast, because some of them are coming out to say that Tinubu has given Igboho leeway to get into Nigeria. You must all be crazy. I repeat that again. If anyone is thinking that Tinubu has given Igboho leeway to come into Nigeria, the question is Yoruba land no longer Igboho's territory? Who are the DSS to tell us what Igboho has committed when the same DSS refuse to go after the criminals inside the territorial ground known as a fake country created by British? So when those that are crying their head out, either from the Southeast, the Middle Belt, the Hausas, that Igboho stroll into Nigeria, yes, he has every right to stroll back into Nigeria because he has not committed any crime. If you like set up many Twitter space, it does not make any inch because Igboho has not done anything to warrant his arrest, not to talk about being tried to be killed. So when some of you are crying on the social media, you might as well go into the nearest river and jump into those rivers and die. It will be in your own interest. Because the question is, we have terrorists operating in Nigeria. We saw the former Chief of Army Staff, T.Y. Danjuma, told us that if you do not protect yourself, you will be wiped off. During the Christmas, over 600 innocent lives were killed in Plateau State. Tinubu do not have the balls to protect people. So those of you that are crying out on a daily basis, I've heard many of you are opening Twitter space and all kind of forums. You better start crying, because your cry is just the beginning. Nigeria will dissolve, but it will either dissolve through the noble path under the leadership of Professor Banji Akintoye. That stated again, this manual is also intended to provide to the wide world the basic details of the Yoruba nation's reasons. We have reasons why we want to go out of Nigeria. Those reasons is now being seek to assert its self-determination and the sovereignty separate from Nigeria. And separation is not a war. If we say we want to separate out of Nigeria, it doesn't call for war. We are not fighting war. Those that are fighting war is Ukraine versus Russia, Israel versus Palestine, Sudan, Ethiopia versus Ethiopia and the rest of other countries that are currently fighting war. But we know that there is already war in Nigeria because evidence is pointing that the Fulani terrorists have an agenda. That agenda has not slept away. Let me just give us a pinch of what Harold Wilsmith said before I give you another pinch of why we need to get out of Nigeria before the war gets closer to our doorstep. Or maybe, just maybe, the war is already on our doorstep. Do we have evidence to that? I think so, we do. That the war that many of you are saying is not on our doorstep is just on our doorstep. Let's listen to this.
So what do they expect of us now that this war is on our doorstep? Of course, there has got to be civil mobilization. And
the word mobilization is what we are doing presently. We are mobilizing ourselves to prepare our mind, because we don't know if there's going to be a coup that might end up bringing another Fulani northerners into the country called Nigeria and then use that to dissolve the fraudulent constitution that was created in the first place, and then take away all our governors and bring in a military administration. The Yorubas must prepare and be preparing very hard for such eventuality. It can happen. We do not pray that Bola Tinubu will be killed in line when that happens. But we know what can happen. We know that in Niger, there was a coup and the president was kept indoor. That means that the military takeover in Nigeria is not going to be an Hausa military, it's a Fulani agenda. to take power from Bola Tinubu by force, knowing fully well that some of us are now fed up with the creation of Nigeria by Britain in 1914. Babangida is not sleeping because he still wants to take control of power from his wheelchair in Mina. But this war is currently on our doorstep, as said by Professor Wale Soyinka. But someone also warned us that the war is getting closer. It will leave your forest into the rural area. Then from the rural area, it will come out to the urban area. We saw that Ibadan, Bodija was a bomb blast. Yet, we are told it's just an illegal mining. But we saw that 3 of our kings were murdered by the Fulani terrorists. This shows that they are no longer in the forest. They've left the rural area and they've come out to the urban area. Maybe we should listen to this.
Which is it for you, Dr. Obadiah? Do you think the government is unwilling or unable to protect the people of Southern Kaduna?
In fact, it is not only unable, it is unwilling, and we have good reason to feel that they are part and parcel of the killers. Let me make some revelations to you.
That's a very big allegation, Dr. Obadiah. The government is part and parcel of the killers.
Yes.
That's big.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. How would the government just say, oh, it is revenge killing and so on? Then you leave it there. Oh, because it is revenge killing and so on and so forth. The body language of this administration, the body language of the state government shows clearly that they have a hand in the killings. No doubt about it. Because, you see, General Abacha, and people don't give him his due. Do you think you would have tolerated such nonsense? And let me make some revelations, because some of us also have our own intelligence networks.
Okay.
Have met with some of the bandits. We have met with some of their high commanders. 1 or 2 who have repented. They have sat down with us, not once, not twice. They told us that one of the northern governors is the commander of Boko Haram in Nigeria. Boko Haram and the bandits are one and the same thing. They have a sophisticated network. During this lockdown, their planes were moving up and down as though there was no lockdown. Moving ammunitions, moving logistics, moving money, and distributing them in different parts of the country. They are already in the south, in the rainforest of the south. They are everywhere. They told us that when they finish these rural killings, they will move to phase 2. The phase 2 is they will go into the urban cities, going from house to house, killing prominent people. I can tell you, this is the game plan. By 2022, they want to start a civil war in Nigeria.
They want to start a civil war in Nigeria. Yet, many Nigerians do not think that the civil war is currently on our doorsteps. All these are evidence, but the real one started before the independence of Nigeria. Let's listen to this.
Hello. And Mrs. Carol Smith, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
May I say how delighted we are to be on Passion. We've looked forward to speaking to an African television station for decades. This is something we have looked forward to for such a long time, and we are so happy to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron Smith was a young, bright, and principled Oxford University graduate who was recruited by the Colonial office and posted to Nigeria. He took his final examination a year ahead of his class. He also married Mrs. Carol Smith, whom he met while they were both at Oxford University. Together they went to Nigeria, where they had their 2 children. Mr. Aaron Smith, you were featured in a program recently by BBC Radio 4,
yes.
Titled Document,
yes.
And that was hosted by Mr. Mike Thompson.
Yes.
You were alleged that the British government rigged the first and most important election in the history of Nigeria in 1959 in favor of the North. Am I correct?
Yes.
How long were you in Nigeria for?
From 1955 to 1960. and we were based in Lagos. I was on the staff of the Department of Labour. I was largely occupied with employment problems, all the employment exchanges, and statistics and international reports, and was kept pretty busy. I was also stationed in Lagos in charge of the capital and the port. I was the port labour officer as well, and I also devised a port labour scheme and later a social security scheme, which was one of the first in Africa, which guaranteed workers some income after they'd finished work. It was a providence scheme. As I say, it was called the National Providence Scheme, and I was very proud to have put that on the statute book.
I was going to ask you what your role is. You've mentioned three important. Is there any particular name given to your office while you were there?
Just labour officer.
I was a labour officer, a senior civil servant.
Okay.
I only intended to stay in Lagos initially for 2 tours of duty. Although, because of this conflict with the elections, there were difficulties. Actually, government wouldn't let me leave the civil service. They were determined that I should stay in the civil service after my 2 tours. And I was offered very considerable incentives, including a knighthood, to stay and work for government. Primarily this was because I had access to state secrets. I learned, and the Governor-General himself confirmed this to me, that the elections were rigged, contrived. The intention was that the North should rule Nigeria. Even in '56, the northern leaders were very proud and were saying, if they couldn't run Nigeria, never mind elections, they might not join Nigeria, they might leave. And we all thought, well, how would they survive? There were no industries, there's not a great deal of agriculture, some groundnuts in the north. This wasn't very practical at all. And then it was, the Governor-General seemed to be thinking that the North couldn't, even if it won an election, rule Nigeria by itself. The South wouldn't stand for that. So there had to be a partner, either the Igbos in the east or the Yoruba in the west, to team up with the North. What he didn't want was for the 2 southern parties, the Igbo and the Yoruba, to team up to form the government, because he believed the North wouldn't tolerate that and talked about leaving the federation. So as I learned, in a small way at first, but very rapidly I learned about the election fixing, and as I say, this was confirmed to me by the Governor-General. He actually said that he wanted me to know the truth because he wanted me to know how much trouble I was in.
You mentioned statistics, you were collecting figures. Yes. Is that for labor and unemployed people only, or general?
Primarily, but obviously my interest was in the population
of
generally.
Nigeria.
Yes, and Awolowo, the Yoruba leader of the action group, yep, and Chief Enaharo, they too, other people were saying, where are all these millions of people in the north? Where are they? We're going up there to campaign. We want to know, you know. And you see all these, you know, thousands of miles of not very developed countryside, and yet the northerners are claiming that their voting registration figures are larger than in the south, you know, larger, far more people up there. Well, actually, if you went through the Igbo land, you know, Enugu and that, you saw lots and lots of people. If you went to Ibadan, again, Ibadan teeming, you know, with millions of people. But we didn't actually see many northerners, and obviously not many northerners at that time came to Lagos. So this did arouse suspicion. Now, the Europeans, you know, not stupid, we are watching what's going on in Nigeria, and we too are beginning to feel there's something not quite right here, that maybe the elections are not going to be as straightforward as they're meant to be. Nigeria was being described as the showcase of democracy, and it was expected that the nationalist leaders would win through. But actually, when the election results were announced by the Governor-General, before the vote was even in, he didn't vote, didn't count for that, he didn't wait for that. I have to tell you, the British were counting the votes, and the British cannot be trusted. They look after their friends. Loyalty is the big thing for the British. And we were friends with the emirs of the north. We looked on people like Inaharo and Awolowo as rather dangerous people. They might even be communists. That's ridiculous, actually. They couldn't be communists in 1,000 years. But this was a sort of thing that was being said. And we were, Europeans, were getting a bit worried about all this. It wasn't quite the honest, straightforward election that we were hoping for.
Apart from Professor Anderson and Dr. Patrick Wilmot that supported your submission on the rigged election, there were other people who also served in the Colonial office in your days. I mean, who opposed to this submission?
Initially, I was warned of what was going on by my senior officer, a Major Bunker. I didn't know, and I knew that the Governor-General had directed me to take all the office staff of the Ministry of Labour to help Chief Okoti Igbo in politics.
I will just leave that for now. This is why some of us are saying to those of you in Nigeria, there's no amount of election either the Americans are telling you or the Britain are telling you will bring that unity that you are looking for. So we're going to go back to the real conversation again. Oliver Layton. Oliver Layton then goes into a political career, just like any other countries around the world. Remember, he was one that also called the Layton Constitution. So when some of you hear the Layton Constitution, this is the man, Oliver Layton. He's the one that also kept his name in our 1954 Constitution. Many Nigerians don't even know this. I mean, you ask yourself, they are so powerful that they decided to even use their name on us. Let's give us a political career of this gentleman. Chandos entered Parliament as a Conservative Member of Parliament, known as MP for the Aldershot, in a wartime. By election in 1940, he was sworn in of the Privy Council the same year. He entered Winston Churchill's war coalition as the president of the Board of Trade. Let's take note of that. The president of the Board of Trade is the head of Board of Trade. This is a committee of Privy Council of the United Kingdom, first established as a temporary committee of inquiry in the 17th century. Nigeria was not merged until the 19th century, known as the fraudulent 1914 amalgamation. Also, moving forward, after the Conservative 1959 election victory, he was then considered for the job of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, a very, very important position, just like someone that we might call your finance minister today in Nigeria. The Chancellor of Exchequer often abbreviated to Chancellor, is a senior minister of the Crown. Did you hear the word Crown? The British Prime Minister is only representing the Crown. He takes order from King Charles. In reverse, our own king takes order from the politician. Ní ọ̀dọ̀ tí wọ́n níbí, àwọn olóṣèlú ń gba àṣẹ látara ìjọba ọba ìlú yìí tá à ń pè ní King Charles. Bọ̀ ní ìsàlẹ̀ lọ́dọ̀ tiwa nílẹ̀ Yorùbá, àwọn ọba ń gba àṣẹ lọ́dọ̀ olóṣèlú. In táwọn Britain ṣe nìyẹn, àwọn keep monarchy system tiwọn, bọ̀wọ́ da tọ̀dọ̀ tiwa rú bí ẹsẹ̀ télọ̀. He fully expected the job, but was saying to link to business and the city of London. So it was given to Rab Butler. Instead, he became the Secretary of State for the colonies. I want us to take note of that. The word colony, I've done a full program on that before. The Secretary of State for the colonies, or Colonial Secretary, was the cabinet of the United Kingdom minister in charge of managing the British Empire, which Nigeria was one of them. So if I take us into that, once again, a very good morning to many of us that have joined the conversation. So let's come back here. So let me give us a background quickly. So anytime we talk about the colony, the Secretary of the State for Colonies, the Secretary of State for Colony or Colonial Secretary was a cabinet of the United Kingdom minister. So what the British did was they set up a particular cabinet that operates on behalf or what they call in charge. If you look at there, it says in charge. So in charge of what? In charge of the British Empire. And if we go back again and try to understand what is the British Empire, the reason why we have to keep explaining all this is to tell many Nigerians that we can never be one. The British Empire knew what they wanted. What they wanted is different from what we wanted. The British Empire, according to what we have here, goes quickly like this. Comprises the dominions, colonies, protectorate, mandate, and other territory that were ruled or administered by the United Kingdom and its predecessor state, which Nigeria was one of them. And that is how LYTTLETON became one of those, because according to what we had or what we have been reading earlier, he was given a position called the Secretary of the Colony, a position which he held until 1954, which gave us the 1954 Constitution. So I have to take you back a little bit so that you can understand who Oliver LYTTLETON is. If I just went straight into the LYTTLETON Constitution, many of you just read this Constitution. Even some of us say it's the best Constitution. Some of us say it's not the best, but that is not the issue. The issue is who are those behind the Constitution? And the question is, who are those that are still behind the existence of the fraudulent 1999 Constitution and even the territorial ground known as Nigeria? So Oliver LYTTLETON is someone that have taken us through his background before we go into that Constitution. He held that position from he came into being a member of parliament. In America, you will call it a senator. In Nigeria, you will call it a senator. But in UK, we call them member of parliament. We have many Nigerians background, but they are not representing Nigeria, as many of them are now representing the interest of Britain. So when you hear we have Nigerian MP in UK, when you hear we have Nigerian senator in America, they are not representing Nigeria. Each one of them is representing the interest of the country that they are operating from, including Canada and the rest of the world, because their allegiance remains to those countries. Their allegiance is not to Nigeria anymore, because either they were born there or they were given a citizenship or they become nationalized into those countries. Their interest is only for that country. Yes, they are still part of what is called Nigeria because their background is from Nigeria. So when those of you are told that we have many Nigerians that are members of parliament, it doesn't make any difference. Their interest will still be to keep us together inside the contraction called Nigeria. And I can tell you that because we saw Kemi Badenoch travel to Nigeria some few weeks back. Yes, she's a Nigerian, born on the 2nd of January 1980. Many of you will not even be given this opportunity like her in the same shithole country called Nigeria. Many Nigerians or Yoruba people that are 44 years old will not get access to become a senator, not to talk about House of Reps. You might be used as thugs or ballot chaser or ballot snatcher. But it is different because Kemi Badenoch lived in a civilized society like UK, where she became and up to the stage that she is now representing UK around the world. So whenever you see faces like these and they're telling you, oh, Kemi Badenoch, and she has been under spotlight in the last couple of days, according to the news here in UK, the former post office chair claimed he is victim of the smear campaign led by Kemi Badenoch. The former chairman of the post office has claimed he was the victim of a smear campaign led by the business secretary Kemi Badenoch and turned on his chief executive in a dramatic day of evidence to a parliamentary committee. These are not the kind of things that will happen in a shithole country like Nigeria, because Nigeria is not there yet. But that is not where we're going, because that is for the UK, news. But let's stick to Kemi Badenoch. She traveled to Nigeria. We saw all the images put out. It is just for the same British interest. Kemi Badenoch. UK signed a landmark economic partnership. Landmark economic partnership with Nigeria. They've always been signing that before Nigeria was created, and they are not ready to let go. So when you read some of these, you think that it is in the interest of both you in Nigeria. It is not on your own interest. It's on the interest of me living in UK as part of their right to live here. But it is not in the interest of Nigeria. So this was published according to the government website in UK, dated 13th of February 2024, just some few weeks back. Kemi Badenoch to sign the first of its kind trade and investment partnership. Partnership will build a strong UK-Nigeria trading relationship worth £7 billion and unlocking new opportunities in sectors such as legal, financial, services, and energy. Keep the eye on the energy. The energy is the most important for UK. UK is no longer getting energy from Russia, as Russia is no longer in good terms with the West. And we know that because Russia was supplying enough energy to the West until the war between Russia and Ukraine came into the limelight. So today, UK is running around the world to secure enough energy to keep some of us that are living in the cold weather where we need those energy. The visit comes as UK energy firm. Did you hear that? I told you it's all about the energy. It has nothing to do with other services or legal or financial. That is just something to keep away your eyes from the real picture. Visit comes as the UK energy firm CONASA signed deal to support Nigerian transition to a sustainable energy. The question is, all these remain that if you keep Nigeria, you are not going to enjoy anything. So this is CONAX. So CONAX Energy is signing partnership on behalf of UK. CONAX is the energy company of the future. We are transforming energy system across Africa. Our mission is to provide reliable, affordable, sustainable energy for all. All this is part of what entraps you in Nigeria. It's a crime to remain a Nigerian. We can set up a future partnership with Colonial as a Yoruba country, where we have as many Yoruba people working in partnership with them. But the question is, most of them will bring their expatriate, just like Dangote brought people from India to work in his factory known as Dangote Refinery. Many of you Nigerians are well educated, but you're not going to be given opportunity to work as those kind of jobs in the Dangote Refinery. So when you see all these, I told you it is not about anything but the future of taking our own energy. They want to become very powerful because they're running after Russia. Nigeria and Africa is where the war is currently going on between the West and Russia. If you don't allow us to exit Nigeria, we will all be trapped. You can see what the reason why they're traveling is to set up a deal to support the transition to sustainable energy, the same energy that has not given you electricity for the last 63 years. Many of you are living in denial. The UK, with today, which was Tuesday, 13th of February, signed a partnership with Nigeria to boost the trade and investment and unlock new opportunities for the UK and the Nigerian businesses. What businesses in a country where the GDP is no longer in favor and the current inflation is about almost 30%? Again, it goes further. The Enhancing Trade and Investment Partnership, ETIP, is the first the UK has signed with an African country and is designed to grow the UK and Nigerian already striving trading relationship, which is totally about 7 billion in a year. The partnership will create opportunities across the breadth of sectors crucial to both economies. These are all trapped. But as I said, Kemi Badenoch is the one to be used for this purpose. But when Nigerians see her, they see her as a Nigerian. I don't see her as a Nigerian. I see her as a puppet working for the British. Which is just another agenda to keep your mind away from the real deal. Until we wake up our mind, we can have a new negotiation as Yoruba country with Britain. There's nothing wrong in that. But you will never see the daylight of any of what she's talking about as a Nigerian. Let's leave that and come back again out of that quickly. Remember, Yugoslavia splitted. The world did not come to an end. Nigeria was split and the world will not come to an end. The former Yugoslavia goes like this. Slovenia is now a country of their own. Macedonia is a country of their own. Central Serbia, Kosovo, Montenegro, Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. Why do you think that we can keep Nigeria when we can have many countries coming out and we can all work independently as an autonomous country and then we can have a better opportunity in the future ahead? If you don't allow us to push this away now, should Bola Tinubu leave power, the North will go very hard on every single Yorubas that come out again and ask for self-determination. Bola Tinubu will probably have maximum 8 years. We have been taken backwards 50 years according to Fayose, the former governor of Ekiti State. I divided 8 years by 42. That means another 5 cycles of election. The question is, when are we likely to come back to become a president in that 5 cycle? Could it be the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th? Because it is not likely that the North will give back power as soon as they get the power, at least for 16 years. Britain does not want Nigeria to break, so they are pushing every agenda, and that is why Peter Obi is one of those agendas. Peter Obi is just another criminal used by the West to deceive the average Nigerians thinking that there's still a future in Nigeria. You can never have a future when your election was rigged, according to Harold Smith, when your constitution was written by Oliver Layton. And I've given you a background to Oliver Layton history. Now, let's look at what he wrote out in 1953 up to 1954. And it goes like this. It is known as the Latin Constitution. Now, anytime you hear Latin, just picture it as a white man. Simple. The moment you hear Latin, picture it as Oyinbo to call Constitution for you. Even though, as at the time, we have scholars, we have people that would have drafted that same Constitution on our behalf in 1953. But rather, the Constitution was drafted by Oyinbo man. Just like we don't know whether the Oyinbo people drafted the fraudulent 1999 Constitution that many of you are now thinking was used by Bola Tinubu to save the Yoruba people or Nigeria as a whole. Stop living in denial. It is time that we wake up from our slumber and go straight into the noble path, as Baba Akintoye said, to his noble goal. The Latin Constitution of 1954. This constitution is remembered as one of the constitutions that was not named after a Governor General of Nigeria. Oliver Layton was the Secretary of State for the colonies. I already explained the meaning of Secretary of State. So if I come back here, you remember that we talked about it. The Secretary of State, somewhere around there, I talked about it, not the British Empire. Yes. So when we talk about Secretary of State, it's a very powerful position that was set up as a cabinet of the United Kingdom minister in charge of managing the British Empire. Nigeria was one of the British Empire. Just as I said, America was one of those as well until America fought the British. It was a war. It was not just a deliberation of conversation like this. They were using guns and bullets to take out whatever needs to be taken out so that they can become an independent country. I showed you that already. All these are countries that Britain colonized. So when you hear the word colony, you can see America is just your left-hand side, 1776. America fought for that freedom. And I have something that was given to me by my uncle. And you can see the soldiers that fought for America. So when some of you are proud American citizens today, but yet you don't want us to be proud Yoruba citizens, it shows how selfish individuals some of you are. You live in America, but America fought for the same right, just as I am fighting with the leadership of Professor Banji Akintoye and the rest of us. Many of you that lives in America and continue to praise people like Bola Tinubu and the APC or the previous government of PDP, which all are the same. It shows how your myopic thinking is that you want to keep Nigeria, but yet you want to save your American passport. But the same American passport never came easy. The American in 1776 fought Britain to secure their freedom. We will do the same thing. It doesn't matter how it's going to happen, but we hope that many of you will join with whatever resources that you have so that we can pull out of Nigeria before it is too late. We must not sit back and allow Tinubu to continue until we pull out. We pull out while it's there. It can be done. Something will lead to something. It doesn't matter how. But what many of you are doing is you're sitting back with your resources and expecting something to trigger before you come out. But one thing is, it is just getting closer, it will happen. How? I don't know, but I know that the more we educate many of you on the benefit of what we will gain should we stand as our own independent country. And those benefits are there. It is just that many of you don't want us to tell you those benefits. Or maybe some of you know the benefit, but you refuse to allow it to sink into your medulla oblongata. Those benefits are so many. And I can share some with us. Let's take a look at this. Benefit of a Yoruba nation. The first thing we should be talking about when we talk about the benefit of Yoruba nation is not because of Fulani. It's because we want to get back our true Yoruba identity. In UK, that I've lived for 24 years, if my name gets changed, I must tell the UK government so that they can amend it. It is called identity theft. If I'm using a different name to operate, that the British government is not aware. So the question we should be asking the British government is, why do they want me to keep Nigeria, knowing that it's not a true identity of myself as a Yoruba man? But Britain will tell you that that is not the issue. Let us just remain one and manage ourselves. And that is why those that have written to some of the MPs in UK say whatever is happening in Nigeria is just a communion clashes. The question is, does the UK sit back and allow terrorists to wipe off the English people or the Scottish or the Welsh and call it a communion clashes? So the Yoruba must start understanding what are the true benefits that we are asking for the future and the present day Yoruba people. It has nothing to do with other ethnic indigenous people. We are not Igbos and we can never be Igbos. We are not Hausas and we can never be Hausas. We are Yorubas and we will remain Yoruba. But the picture that the world is getting on us today is that we are Nigerians. But when we say we want Yoruba nation, please let us stop refraining from saying that it is because of the Fulanese alone that we want Yoruba nation. We want Yoruba nation because of our true identity. And that is why many of us, when we travel around the world, for those that have been able to travel, even within Africa, imagine even when you travel between Nigeria and Benin Republic, a Nigerian military is asking you whether you're a Nigerian, even though you have a Nigerian passport. So the number one reason why we want to leave Nigeria is because of our identity. The number two, our language, èdè wa. Tó bá lọ sí any other country tí wọ́n kì í sọ òyìnbó, èdè ni wọ́n máa fi communicate pẹ̀lú ẹ̀. Kí ló wá dé tí àwa fẹ́ da èdè wa nù látara pé a fẹ́ jẹ́ Nàìjíríà? Ìjọ tí Yorùbá country bá ti dá dúró, èdè la máa fi communicate. I've been to Turkey a few times. They speak English from their custom, but the moment you get into the country, the city, it is all Turkish. Maybe some of them will speak a little bit of English, or you might need a translator to work with you. Èdè wọn ló fi communicate. I've been to United Arab Emirates, Dubai. They speak English, but they have their own language called the Arabic language. We are not an Islamic nation. We are a Yoruba people. Tí ó gbọ́dọ̀ sọ èdè ẹ̀. But the reason why we are not speaking Yoruba lẹ́nu ni pé the British knew that if we secure our language, which would be the pride for us in the future, so they merge Nigeria together and force everybody to speak one language which favors them but doesn't favor me and you. So our language, reviving the Yoruba language, will help to restore our culture and heritage. The language as secret code of communication in our everyday life. Tí bá sọ Yorùbá nísìn, gbogbo ẹni tí ò bá gbọ́ Yorùbá, they will get frustrated. Wọ́n ní gbọ́ nǹkan tí mo sọ mọ́. Tí bá ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ Yorùbá nísìn, àwọn ọmọ Ìgbò tó wà lórí ètò báyìí, àfi tó bá gbọ́ Yorùbá nìkan ló máa gbọ́ tí mo sọ. Bẹ́ẹ̀ àwọn ẹ̀yà tó kù ní gbogbo àgbáyé ò ní gbọ́ nǹkan kan mọ́. It's a code. And that is why when we are on the bus with our children, if you don't want anybody to listen to what you're saying, you start speaking your language. You see that with the Ghanaians, the Sierra Leones, and we see that with the Somalians. The Somalian doesn't even speak English. They speak their local language. The same thing goes with the Turkish. I'm talking about here in UK. Go on the public transport. You will see multiple different languages being spoken, and you cannot understand what they are saying. That goes even under the train or the tram. The moment those are speaking those languages, they don't want you to know what they are communicating. Somebody speaking Spanish doesn't want you to understand what they are saying. Somebody speaking French doesn't want you to understand. Only if you are trained to understand that language. So kí ló wá dé tí à ń sọ pé a fẹ́ gba Yorùbá nation tẹ́ ń sọ fún wa pé kò kì í ṣe ẹ̀tọ́ wa. Ẹ̀tọ́ wa ni nítorí pé the Yoruba language is our own secret code of communication. But today we've lost it. Even in Yoruba land, people are now speaking English, just as we are told that speaking English is vernacular. This is what we are working towards. This is the reason why we need to protect our heritage from the contraction of what is known as Nigeria. But the more Tabawa in Nigeria, you go to your bank, they're speaking in English. Go to Turkey, when you go into their bank, they don't speak English because it is not their mode of communication. You go to their post office, they don't speak English. Though they might have one or two people that speak English, and then they might bring them out to say, please help us to communicate. I've been to their post office before in Turkey. When I wanted to post something, I realized that they don't speak English. So it was very difficult for me to communicate with them. I had to use a translator. And they are not interested because that is not their mode of communication. But listen, you go to every part of Parastata in Yoruba land, everybody is speaking in English. The question is, why should we be speaking in English? It is what the British created. If they talk about lower one, and even though they'll tell you go and speak Queen English, I have lived here for 24 years. I would prefer to speak my own language in my own Yoruba country. But an average Yoruba man, listen, wọ́n sọ pé òun ò tẹ̀ fẹ́ gbọ́ Yoruba mọ́, ó fẹ́ gbọ́ English. And the same English doesn't give you a visa to UK, which is our colonial master. Number 3, our passport. I have traveled with the Nigerian passport and I've witnessed racism using that same shit old passport. I still have my passport. And I know what we face even to get that passport renewed in UK. At least I've renewed mine a few times in UK. And I believe another renewal is coming very soon. What about you? How difficult has it been to get a Nigerian passport? But when we talk about passport, passport is another form of identity. When I travel with a Nigerian passport, I am not identified as a Yoruba man, neither are you identified as an Igbo or Hausa. You are automatically plugged into a country called Nigeria that was created by Britain in 1914, fraudulent amalgamation by Lugard. While Lugard was creating Nigeria in 1914, LYTTLETON was preparing the Constitution in 1953. We'll come back to that in a minute. Our currency. Our currency will be our own mode of payment around the world. Printing of our own currency, which will come with more value. Today, we have the ruba, which is as equivalent to our currency. Many have even questioned such. And the question I'm asking is, what has been the value of the Naira today? As the Naira continues to depreciate, it is not likely to come back out of the coma that he has found himself. It is not literally that it's the fault of the present administration, but he was one of those that instigated Buhari on us in 2014, coming into the election in 2015. Tinubu paid Buhari to become the president. He sponsored Buhari. He brought him out from his Daura base where he was rearing his cow. He's a Fulani man. Tinubu paid the price of what he is facing today. He knew that Buhari was not capable. Not even a school cert Buhari could tender. Yet, they are now trying to fix Nigeria currency. That will not happen. Many of you will still end up buying rice by the next 3 months at 200,000 naira a bag. Nigeria will be worse more than Venezuela. Venezuela also have enough natural resources as crude oil. But the poverty inside Venezuela today is a top notch. So many of you, you better start small farming around your house. Don't pay to feed yourself. If you can't afford to eat rice, you can have alternative within what you can grow. You don't need a big farm to start farming. Let us go back into that small scale farming within our territory. There will be much poverty. There's nothing we can do to that because there is a global recession. This is what the globalists want. The globalist does not want you to survive. Neither does it want me to survive. We will have to fight it together if we are going to survive. And if you don't allow us to fight it together, some of us might just survive by inch. You will not survive because you are calling God. God has nothing to do with this. On the spiritual realm, Nigeria is dead. The physical must be ready to take over from the spiritual side. Number 5, our resources. We talked about resources all the time. I have been to places in 2021 with Chief Dr. Sunday Igboho where we saw people taking what belongs to us. And when we asked them, why are they operating here? They gave evidence that indicated that people gave them the source and pinpoint where to go after. And we saw that, and I have all the documents and the videos. But it is not something that can be put out now. They are classified information. Our Nitanisi, our struggle. But we have the resources to look after us and our children and the future children. But the Chinese have invaded every Yoruba land because some of our people have given them access to such resources. Our people continue to cry out, even though we have vast amount of resources. Our school children cannot even have classrooms, even though we have vast amount of forest reserve. But rather, the Chinese continue to cut down the timbers and move them to China in large scale. We are now struggling as Yoruba people because of the fault of some of you that refuse to back the Yoruba Nation movement today. You will suffer more before the dissolution of Nigeria. There's no doubt about it in my mind. You will call on some of us, we will probably just see your message and we will ignore it. Not because of anything, it's because we don't even have it. Recession is everywhere. UK is currently in recession as I speak as well. So that means I have to save every pound I have in this country to look after myself and my family. Our resources is now being taken away from us by the marauders of those that say we should keep one Nigeria. But if we have Yoruba Nation today, we will have ability to control and manage our own almighty God-given resources. Our constitution is number 6. Presently, the fraudulent 1999 constitution as amended. You cannot amend something that is a fraud. So when we talk about the Constitution of Nigeria, many of you continue to ask whether that constitution President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will use to fix Nigeria. And the question is no. And that is why President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said this some few months after he came to office.
The cost of fuel has gone up. Food and other prices have followed it. Households and businesses struggling. Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there's not.
There can never be another way because President Bola Tinubu knew that Nigeria was not one. He said this categorically during his exile in London, that he doesn't believe in Nigeria. But today, He believes in Nigeria now because it's part of the game being played on the mindset of millions of Yoruba people. The gullible Yorubas are thinking that Tinubu being in power will bring peace to them. But rather than bring peace, Tinubu has now brought in much more chaos than many Yorubas are now asking whether Tinubu is even capable to be in that position. And some of them are coming out faster than what I said some 3 years ago when I was indicating that Nigeria was not worth dying for. Some of them are now saying more than what I am saying, and this goes like this.
Country. Please, if government work, if they cannot protest, we Yaloja, we go open our yacht, we go open our bread, we go protest. Too much surveillance, too much for this country. But before you win, you go suffer. The surveillance is too much. Please, what they find solution for this things? It's too much. Gary, 2,000 naira. Since when my father bought me, I've not buy 1,000 naira plate of Gary. They're selling it 2,000 naira now. It's too much. The surveillance is too much. Even to the right, the little one right up to 1,200 naira. For what reason? It's too much to buy meat.
These are Nigerians that are now voicing out, but they are not Nigerians. These are our Yoruba brothers and sisters that are now questioning not just the legitimate of this government, but whether this government will be able to move them out of poverty. Your life will become trapped in Nigeria. But the benefit of Yoruba nation literally means that we can have a constitution away from the fraudulent 1999 constitution that has been used to deceive many of us since 1999. That constitution is not going to work. And how do we know that? Let's listen to this.
We have problems in the land. And the problems, I want to say this, I might be off the cuff, is because of our constitution. Also, Nigeria is not operating any constitution known to honesty, entrenched in group rate, brought about by unanimity of the people, acceptable to federalism, and again, that is also, we also have that problem in the judiciary because of the Nigerian situation. We have a unitary system. That's what we want. Hydra-headed. Don't let us pretend. And I've said it over and over. And I'll continue to say it. And that's unitarism has also created into the judiciary. Today, the entire Nigerian judiciary is unitarized. The Supreme Court is federal. Federal Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal is federal. Federal High Court is federal. FCT is federal. National Industrial Court is federal. Customary Court of Appeal on the Federal High Court is federal. Sharia Court of Appeal, the Federal High Court is federal. All jurisdictions that the Chaldean judges of this world, that the victors of this world, that the parents of this world, when they while their respective high courts exercised, making the law to be profound, succulent, rich, exciting, they are now vested in different federal high courts or federal courts. We're talking of how to reform the system. There is no justification in a state, in a nation like Nigeria, purporting to practice federalism, where even the Supreme Court should be overburdened with unnecessary jurisdiction in respect of land matters from Yoruba land, in respect of divorce, in respect of family matters, citizenship matters. How do they know? I don't want us to be deceiving ourselves. Assuming I'm even appointed to the Supreme Court today, I'm above the age, but assuming, and I'm sitting there, and you bring a matter on appeal in respect of Kanuri native law and custom, or Igbo native law and custom, or Igbo land tenure system, and I sit there, and I'm writing judgment. I'm a Yoruba man. What do I know about that? Those kind of cases to stop at the state, either Court of Appeal or Supreme Court. Go to the United States of America. The state has its own Supreme Court. We are running into trouble. We are inching there, and time is not in our favor. And I'm not tickled by what the National Assembly is doing. They are not being fair to themselves. They are not being fair to us. They claim to be amending the Constitution. What are they amending? And I want to repeat it. You amend something that is not amendable? When you want to amend the Constitution, by the way, where do you start? to start from the preamble with the people. Oh yes, they have to amend it. Why are they running away from it? If they cannot amend the preamble, if the preamble is not amendable, then it means the constitution is not amendable. Come on, they have to start from it. Don't start reading your letter from the back page. Do you? No, they have to start from the preamble. That means the preamble is fake. We the people, who are the we? When did we meet? And why can't we do it? I'm studying the constitutions of the world. And I say this also with every sense of humility. There's no constitution that is near as fake, near as deceitful, near as make-believe in nature and in content as the constitution, as the what we call the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended.
Now, if we have our own Yoruba independent country, we will have our constitution in Yoruba language. Yoruba constitution will define the system of governance. As I speak to you today, we don't have governance across the 191 local government in Yoruba land. What you have is just caricature. You cannot go into any local government and see whether it functions. It doesn't have the full autonomy. The 1999 Constitution is one of the biggest fraud in the history of Nigeria, just as the 1914 fraudulent amalgamation. Ìbéèrè tí àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá tí mo béèrè ni pé ṣé ẹ fẹ́ ká ní benefit tiwa látara pé tá bá dá dúró gẹ́gẹ́ bí orílẹ̀-èdè? You will not gain any benefit from Nigeria. You probably enjoy one or two things, but the full right of a citizen, you are not enjoying it. Because you can just look around your surroundings, across wherever you are, including those outside Nigeria, and ask yourself, what are the benefits tí mò ń gain látara ìlú tí mo jẹ́ citizen ẹ̀? I have not enjoyed anything because I have left Nigeria because my mom saw that the future of being in Nigeria was going to entrap her in poverty. So she left Nigeria in the 90s. I left the same way she left. If I have the means, I still want to get as many of my family out. But is that the solution to the crisis? Tabani Yoruba country tiwa, a Yoruba independent country tiwa, we will set up where an independent constitution will also be given respect to all the citizens. Ask yourself, Womo Yoruba tó ń gbọ́ mi láàárọ̀ yìí, ǹjẹ́ Nigerian constitution respected? You can write it out in the comment section. We will also have a Yoruba Prime Minister, just as I have Rishi Sunak operating from the United Kingdom as my Prime Minister. We will have a judicial system, just like our senior learned man was saying there, that can look into as many of our disputed problems within the Yoruba territory. Whether it is the Igbos that are trying to take part of our land, we will talk to them through our own constitution that they might abide with. Whether it is somebody from the European country that wants to control the Apapa port, because most of you don't even know that Apapa port is not controlled by Nigeria. Apapa port is controlled by the West, even though it is lying in the southwest part of Nigeria. We will be able to control the influx of Fulanis into our territory. The one that wants to live with us, we will make sure that they are well documented. Not just documented, well fingerprinted and monitored with a security system, and the ones that are going to be threat to us, we will take them out of the country back to wherever they come from. Just like Britain will not allow terrorists to live here, or they will be locked up in the highest prison. I don't think America would love terrorists to roam around with AK-49 and kill innocent Americans. But what we say in Nigeria is that you cannot travel within the network of Yoruba land because there is no government to look after you. Security system. Many of you that are crying out again on Chief Sunday Igboho. Chief Sunday Igboho would not have come out if our governors are protecting us. But rather than our governors to protect us, they are part of the game. They are part of those that decided to use us for their own benefits. And yet, many cannot speak out. It is not today that our people have been attacked in Yoruba land due to the insecurity. Maybe we should listen to this, and I hope the video is still in my archive. Okay, no. All right. Let's go back and see if I can find something to link this insecurity that has invaded every part of Yoruba land today. Many of you continue to be killed because of the negligence of the government to protect us from the insecurity across Yoruba land. Okay, I think I have the one that might touch us this morning that we've used, and I think I have that in my archive already. Let's use that one. So, once again, a very good morning. We are still discussing the benefit. I'm going to go back quickly because this program is coming to an end in just under 25 minutes or less. And I still want to talk about the Latin Constitution. But I want us to remind us that the reason why the insecurity will continue is because we don't have governors that are loyal to protect us. And that is the reason why Oloyegbowo stood firm that we would defend ourselves. But we should stop calling our kings or abusing them. Oloye sent that message during his mother's burial. Maybe we should remind you what Oloye said just some few days ago.
Gbogbo ẹ̀yin ọmọ ọ̀dọ́ tá a jọ káàkiri ọ̀dọ́jọ́ ni wá ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ kí a fi àyè gba Fúlàní lórí ilẹ̀ àwọn bàbá wa ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ ká bú ọba mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ ká bú jòyè mọ́ nígbà tá a la fẹ́ jà fún àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ wa táwa ń kọ́kọ́ ń bú ọba tá à ń bú jòyè èmi náà ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ rí bó mo pera mi padà ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ ká bú àgbààgbà kankan mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ bolóṣèlú kankan ẹ̀rù kálukú ń bẹ̀rù wọn ò lè sọ̀rọ̀ ọba ò lè sọ ìjòyè lè sọ ẹ jẹ́ ká ronú ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ ká bá àwọn bàbá jà mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ á bú wọn mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ á ṣe wọn ra wọn la pẹ̀lú wọn àwọn àgbà tó bá jó lóṣèlú tá a bá fẹ́ kọ́ wọn rẹ̀ wá lọ́wọ́ á gbé wọn mọ́ra á gbé wọn mọ́ra ni à ní bú wọn mọ́ ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ á ṣèjẹ̀gbọ́n ẹ mọ̀ jẹ́ á dàlúrú a lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì ṣèjẹ̀gbọ́n a lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì yìnbọn a lè gba ẹ̀tọ́ wa láì dàlúrú gbogbo protest mo ṣe ní ìlú Nàìjíríà mi ò rí ibi tí mo ti ẹnìkan lè sọ pé mo pààyàn tàbí mo jó nǹkan náà tàbí mo bà nǹkan jẹ́ mo lọ písù torí pé olówó lèmi náà tí ò bá sólówó lára ń dì mọ́ gbogbo nǹkan tọ́lọ́run fún yàn lọ́lọ́run fún mi mi ṣe tálákà tó dé pé mo dìde fún jà Yorùbá big man ni mí àwọn tó jẹ́ ọ̀rẹ́ mi tó súnmọ́ mi tó ní owó ní kí ni mo wá lọ bẹ̀ pé sọ́wọ́ lè mi mò ń fẹ́ ni kí n sọ yìí tí mo fẹ́ mo ní ìsọ̀rọ̀ owó àní ọ̀rọ̀ ìran mi ni mò ń sọ kí n wọ gbowó kí n gbéra kí n pé mò ń lọ ọ̀dọ̀ ọba gbowó mò ń lọ ọ̀dọ̀ oníbodè òfin gbowó kí n kójó wọlé kọ́kàn mi balẹ̀ kí n dá wa mọ́tò kí n mọ́ rìn bọ̀ kí Fúlàní mọ́ dá mi dúró títì kí n délé kí bàbá sọ pé kí n gbé tírélà sùn kí n mọ́ gbé lọ àwọn bàbá wo lè lóko mọ́ wọn ò lè lóńdò ẹ jẹ́ ká fọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀ ká ti àwọn bàbá wa lẹ́yìn ká dá security ti wá lẹ̀ ká sọ fún wọn kí wọ́n bá wa fọwọ́ tì í ká lé wọn kó nu oko wa ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ Jésù Olúwa wa.
ọwọ́ mi ni ó ọwọ́ mi ni ó ẹ wò ó ilé fi mú nǹkan kẹ́ mọ́.
Before we play the next video, some of you probably have forgotten some of our fathers that have been attacked because of the insecurity on the land. The next video, only did I just find out that one of our brothers that I've been speaking to, that is also one of their fathers. Many of these continue to happen, but because the insecurity, when we have a Yoruba country of our own, we will have a security system. A security system would be well controlled. Today, you cannot have a full security system well controlled because the country, Nigeria, is not ready to protect the interests of the Yoruba people. It's coming up to 6:27 a.m. My name is OLAYOMI Koiki, and I'll be winding down this program where we will continue the second part later at some other time. But let's listen to this. This is what is happening. As at yesterday, I spoke to someone that sent a message to me from Okeogun. During our conversation, he confirmed that this particular man is still alive, but many of us have forgotten about him because we are living our own life in our different cities and different parts of the world. But yet, individuals like these are the ones facing their daily wahala. Chibiko kwanwamo, tibawo telikologe, or the gewo daddy tieno. But I want to work gay over baba won, àbí ọwọ́ ẹ̀gbọ́n wọn, àbí family wọn. Kí ni ká sọ fún wọn nígbà tá níjọba? Tíjọba ò dẹ̀ ṣe kí ni? Ìjọba tó jẹ́ kó ṣe ètò ààbò faraàlú kò ṣe é. Gbọ́ mi, ìjọba tó jẹ́ kó ṣètò faraàlú kò ṣe é. Ta ló sọ bẹ́ẹ̀? Ẹ̀jẹ̀ àgbọ̀n tẹ́lẹ̀ sọ.
Orúkọ mi ni Sunday Adéyẹmọ tí gbogbo yẹn mọ̀ sí Sunday Ìgbòho. Sọ̀mọ̀gbọ́tẹ̀ bá jọ ọmọ Ìbàdàn tó bá ń gbé kó wọ́n máa pè ní bàbá Ìbàdàn, wọ́n lè máa pè ẹni náà pè ní Ìbàdàn. So ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ yẹn tó bá ń gbé ìlú òdì kejì tó bá jọ ọmọ bòmí ó kọ ìlú tó ti wá yẹn náà máa fi pè é níbi tó ń gbé. Èmi náà jẹ́ kan nínú ẹni tó kópa nínú ogun Mọdákẹ́kẹ́ àti Ifẹ̀. So ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn tó bá gbọ́ sórí ogun yẹn tó ń gbọ́ gbogbo pa tí mo kó mẹ́rin pé ọkùnrin mẹ́rin ogun bàbá yẹn ń gba ogun ó ṣe báyìí ó máa ń jẹ́ kí ẹlòmíràn pé ọkùnrin ni, akíkanjú ọkùnrin ni. Gbogbo wa wàhálà Ládọjà àtàwọn bàbá dídí búmbàdàn náà, gbogbo àwọn tí wàhálà yẹn sojú wọn, wọ́n fẹ́ impeach Ládọjà, wọ́n fẹ́ yẹ Ládọjà ń pò, wọ́n fẹ́ gbàjọba lọ, wọ́n fẹ́ yẹ Ládọjà jẹ nǹkan kan tèmi dẹ̀ dúró tì ń gbà yẹn. Gbogbo àwọn tó rí pa tí mo kó láti pé kán mọ́ rí Ládọjà yẹn jẹ́ ń gbà yẹn. Sùtẹ́lómi bá rí mi èrò yẹn pé ọkùnrin mẹ́ẹ̀ẹ́dọ́gbọ̀n nìyẹn bí wọ́n ṣe bọ́ta ṣe pọ̀ tó Ọlọ́run ṣẹ́gun wọn fún èròǹgbà mi lórí ìgbésẹ̀ àwọn Fúlàní yẹn ni pé ẹnu Yorùbá gbọ́dọ̀ kò tí wọ́n bá mọ̀ pé wọ́n fẹ́ ká bá Fúlàní jà káwọn bàbá wa gbogbo àwọn ọba wa gbogbo àwọn bàbá wa wọ́n ṣáájú kàn pè wá sí mítì kan dẹ̀ fún ara pé tó àwọn ọmọ yìí o kí ròyìn dé sì gbé kí gbogbo ayé rí pé tó àwọn ni wọ́n sọ pé tó ká kojú wọn gbogbo ibi tí yàrá ti fẹ́ jẹ Yorùbá ká fèsì ibẹ̀ Ọlọ́run mọ̀mọ̀ mú wa agbára mélòó wà làwọn Fúlàní wa ní wọn ò tó ń tọ́ ń pera wọn wọn fọlọ́ búra fún yín wọn ò tó ń tọ́ ń pera wọn Ọlọ́run bá Olódùmarè ń gbọ́ ṣùgbọ́n tá a bá ní nǹkan tí àwa náà ní lọ́dọ̀ àwọn bàtà jogún àwọn bàbá ká bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí lò ń sìn ká bọ́ta wọ́n sọ wá lóko míì táwọn bàbá bá mọ̀ pé yà ń jẹ àwọn Yorùbá kàn pe gbogbo wa sí mítìn kàn pe Ọọ̀ni kàn pa Láàfin kàn pa àwọn bàbá Àwùjalẹ̀ gbogbo àwọn ọba yẹn tó bá jókòó kàn á pè wá kàn invite gbogbo wa wá Ọlọ́run bá lágbára èmi ò tó nǹkan kan àwọn tó tún lágbára jù wá pọ̀ tó pọ̀ jù bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ kàn pe gbogbo wọn jọ so tí èsì tó bá pè wọn jọ tó bá mọ̀ pé lè kan ru wa náà ipá náà sì lè ní pátá lè kó kọ́ pè wá káwájọ jókòó káwo bá ṣe fẹ́ ṣe tí ò ní sí nǹkan kan ẹ̀mí gbọ̀n kankan mọ́ ẹlòmíì náà ń gbọ́ gbòó ni kò kú rí mi rí ẹlòmíì á ní ó lè kọ̀máǹdì mọ́ ó lójú àwọn tí mo ṣe lójú wọn rí ẹlòmíì á ló lè ṣe báyìí ẹlòmíì tí bá ṣèkan lójú ẹ yóò sọ 10 ṣé nǹkan tí mo sọ yìí ẹlòmíì á sì ní ẹnu ni so àwọn tí wọ́n sọ pé nu nìyẹn èmi mọ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ́n kí nǹkan dẹ̀mí àti wọn pọ̀ wọ́n lè rí pé kì í sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀nà ṣùgbọ́n pé kẹ́nìkan wá lóhun dìde ṣe èmi ìwọ ni mi Sunday Igboho mo wá bọ́ ọ̀tá o àbá nígbà tí wọ́n bá fi dọ̀tún la Buhari ó pàṣẹ láti Àbújá sọ́jà tí ó ka mọ́ta nkìdé yóò ju tó gun Boko Haram tó ń jẹ́ ilẹ̀ Haúsá lọ wọn ò ríra wọn bẹ̀ yẹn tá a bá dẹ́rẹ̀ wò nísìn ẹ̀ rí i pé wọ́n yìí máa lọ́wọ́ gbogbo táwọn ń ṣe ilẹ̀ Haúsá tó ń mú jẹ yẹn tá a bá dẹ́rẹ̀ wò nísìn wọ́n yìí máa lọ́wọ́ torí pé àwọn Yorùbá kan náà ni ó lọ bá wọn lọ́hùn tí wọ́n sọ pé àwọn ọmọ bí wọ́n ṣe wọ́n ṣe nu ó pa ẹ̀ làwọn ọmọ ayákìlá làwọn ọmọ bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ yẹn ta la parí ta ìyá yóò la parí ìbíjà iná làlá fẹ́ gbé ó tó fi gba sùúrù nìyẹn ó gbọgbọ́n kì í ṣe nǹkan tí yẹn kàn kágbá lọ́rùn tó kó funpá tó kó lóńdè tó gbé bọ̀kọ́ tó lọ́fẹ́ lọ pàdé Fúlàní o bí bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́ wọ́n sọ di nǹkan mímọ́ yẹn lọ́wọ́ àfi kéèyàn jókòó kó lọ́wọ́ àwọn bàbá yẹn táwọn bàbá yẹn ó ṣèwé kán sáyìn fún wa pé àwa la ṣèwé fún yín pé ìyà gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ Yorùbá gbogbo bíkíbi tí ilẹ̀ Yorùbá dé ẹ lọ ṣàbò lórí ẹ̀pọ̀ àwọn ọmọ tẹ bá mọ̀ ń bẹ kẹ́ ṣàbò àwọn ọmọ ń bẹ lẹ̀lẹ̀ bàbá mi àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá ń bẹ ńlẹ̀ tí wọn ò ní sá rárá àwọn ọmọ tẹ́wọ̀n tán jó àwọn ọmọ tẹ́wọ̀n tán jókòó wọ̀nyí wọ́n yìí sọ wọn ẹsẹ̀ ẹran rírọ̀ but ọgbọgbọ́n àlèkè pé ẹ mọ lọ sí Ìkirè ibi tí wọ́n ti ń kidnap Yorùbá ẹ mọ lọ Òṣogbo ẹ mọ lọ lọ́rin ẹ mọ lọ sí yóò di nǹkan mímọ́ wa lọ́wọ́ tó bá ti dá wọn lójú pé àwọn làwọn bí wa àwọn sì làwọn bàbá àwọn ni bàbá wa lẹ̀ Yorùbá ń bí wọ́n sì ṣe bàbá burúkú wọ́n dẹ̀ sọ̀dàlẹ̀ bàbá tí fìyà jọmọ káwọn náà bá gbádá rẹ̀ kàn ó tì wá síwájú bàbá lọ bàbá nílọ káwọn bá gbádá rẹ̀ kàn ní ká nìṣó níbẹ̀ bàbá lọ bàbá nílọ bá wọn gángan ò ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ toró táwọn bàbá àkànnà ń bẹ tó ń gbà ń bẹ àwọn oníṣẹ́ jù báyìí lọ bọ̀ táwọn bá jẹ́ bàbá dáadáa tí wọ́n dẹ̀ fẹ́ fi àtúbọ̀tán rí lẹ̀ fáwọn ọmọ wọn kò yẹ kí wọ́n gbàbọ̀dẹ̀ fún Yorùbá kò yẹ kí wọ́n.
As we are bringing this program towards the end, let's complete the part of the benefit of Yoruba nation. We will have a secure immigration system. Permission will only be given to those with genuine and good intention to visit the country, and violation will be deported. Just like I say most of the time, my 24 years of living in the United Kingdom, out of that 24 years, 15 years it took me to resolve my immigration. But today we have many people that are moving around the Yoruba land, either as part of being a Nigerian, but we also have many that are not Nigerians from different African countries, and they live, they eat, they breed, and they're multiplying on a daily basis. And they are putting pressure on the system that is not enough for the Yoruba people in the southwest known of Nigeria today. It's because of Nigeria. Our part, ability to manage our own airport, seaport, and land port. These are the most three important vital space that belongs to us. But the more you remain in Nigeria, the more you will not be able to control such. Medical care, there will be free and effective one, just as I enjoy it with my family in the United Kingdom through what we call the NHS, the National Health Service. Education. During Buhari, we saw 9 months of children across Nigeria sitting at home because the government could not work education with those that are meant to be giving lectures to our students. Restoration of Chief Awolowo's Western Regional Industrial Project. Today, all part of Yoruba land is completely almost dead, if not dead. No vital industry, maybe one or two in Ogun State axis. But when you go to other areas, you realize that nothing functions because there's no 24 hours electricity. Everybody has turned into just Okada rider and just managing some small little businesses here and there, apart from maybe just Lagos alone. The Yoruba nation would also be competing in a football Premier League, just as many of you watch Premier League in UK, Italian, Serie A, and the rest. There's a lot of work to be done, but that is subject to whether people are ready for us to get the Yoruba country or not. I'm going to go back again swiftly because of my time constraint this morning to the final part, the latent constitution. I've given us the background of where it is. If you're just joining us, you have to go back and listen to that part. The latent constitution of 1954, like I said earlier, this is a constitution is remembered as one of the constitutions that was not named after a governor general of Nigeria. Oliver Layton was the Secretary of State for the colonies. He encouraged the drafting of a new constitution. The role he played earned him the reward of naming the constitution after his name. Layton spearheaded the drafting of a new constitution for Nigeria in 1953. Constitutional conferences were held in London in 1953 and the Lagos Conference of 1954 to harmonize the views of Nigerian political elite and the colonial administrators and the proposer of fiscal commission headed by Sir Lewis Chick. The London Conference of 1953. The London Conference of 1953 was the idea of Oliver Layton, who in an address to the British House of Commons in 1953 suggested a new constitution to tackle among many issues. Those issues are still existing, and the most paramount one is to dissolve Nigeria for a better future of indigenous people. The relationship between the regional and the central government, independent of the country, and the deficiencies inherent in the Macpherson Constitution. 19 delegates comprises of 6 from each existing 3 regions and 1 from Cameroon attended the conference. Recommendation of the 1953 conference. The conference between July and August 1953 came up with the following decision. Number 1, Nigeria became a federation. Number 2, the public service to be recognized. Number 3, internal self-government to be given to the regions that want it. Number 4, Lagos to cease being part of Western Territory and become a federal capital territory. Number 5, Governor of Nigeria to become a Governor General while Lieutenant Governors become Governor General. Number 6, legislative powers should be shared between the federal, regional, and the federating unit. Number 7, that a conference should be held in Lagos in 1954 and rectify a separate regional administration in Cameroon if the people of the territory support the proposal through a referendum. Number 8, that Her Majesty government will grant self-government to those regions who so desire it in 1956. The Lagos Constitutional Conference of 1954. The conference was held to resolve outstanding issues from the 1953 London Constitutional Conference, and it came up with the following recommendation. Number 1, resources to be allocated to the region based on derivation. Number 2, partial autonomy to be granted to the Southern Cameroon. Number 3, civil service and judiciary to be recognized. Number 4, Southern Cameroon to remain part of the Federation but with a legislature of its own. Features of latent constitution. Number 1, it gave a lot of authority to the regional legislature. Number 2, it set out a list of exclusive and concurrent responsibilities. The central government had powers to legislate on the exclusive list, and both the central and regional government had the power to legislate on the current list. The central government took precedence All issues not listed on these two lists were regarded as a residual, with only the regional government having the power to legislate on them. The Latin Constitution was therefore regarded as the first genuine federal constitution in Nigeria since 1914 fraudulent amalgamation. It replaced the office of the lieutenant government in the region with that of the governor. The governor of Nigeria became the governor general. Number 4, the Federal House of Representatives was to be constituted through direct election. Number 5, it accorded for the first time executive control of government, department to the federal and regional ministers. Number 6, it decentralized both the civil service and the judicial system. Both were put in regional hands. Number 7, Supreme Court was established for the country. Number 8, a federal capital territory, Lagos, was created. Number 9, Nigerians elected regional premiers. Number 10, the principle of derivation was adopted as the basis for revenue allocation. Number 11, office of the Speaker and Deputy Speaker was created. All these were created by the Englishman known as Lytton, the Secretary of the British Empire. We were never given the opportunity as true indigenous people to decide our own constitution because the British Empire controlled Nigeria as at the time. Merit of the Latin Constitution. Number 1, full federation was established. Number 2, portfolios were given to ministers. Number 3, constitution formed basis for eventual constitutional negotiation. Today, many are saying that that constitution of today, of 1999, is a fraudulent constitution. It doesn't favor myself, it doesn't favor anyone, but yet many things that we go into the country called Nigeria by an election and you will win, and then you will not win, or whatever. However, the question is, the 1999 constitution will never bring peace and progress in Nigeria, and that is more reason why Nigeria must dissolve as quickly as possible. Number 4, it created the office of the Speaker, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. Number 5, more powers were granted to the region. Today, no region has that power anymore. We lost that, and you are not likely to gain that even with the president of Tinubu presently. Yaradua never gave it. Obasanjo never gave it. Buhari never gave it. Tinubu will never give it. Tinubu will hand over power back to the North as part of the deal and agreement behind closed doors. Number 6, the 2 tiers of government were given specific functions. Number 7, educated Nigerians were given opportunity to participate in the country's affairs. Today, educated Nigerians, PhD, doctors, masters, even some are now becoming the new norms of Japa. Those are left in the 70s, those are left in the 80s, people like us that left in the 90s have not returned back, even with our skills, even if it's part of just living in a country like this. We should have taken that skills back to Nigeria, but we can't do that. Rather, most of those are told are now selling all their assets to leave the country for greener pasture. It was not like that in the past, and nothing is going to change even with this present administration. Nigerians were elected as regional premiers. The merit of the Latin Constitution. Number 1, it exposed the fears of the minorities. The Fulanis are the minorities, but they're taking over almost every part, using their influence in the power of corridor for a very long time, even though we knew that the British created that norm by forcing the northern part of Nigeria on the rest of us by making sure that the North won the election of 1959, which was the first ever rigged election in the country. So some of you that are talking about Bola Tinubu rigging election, maybe you should question the British for rigging the first election that did not favor the South in 1959. We can never be one. Let everybody dissolve and go back, just like Yugoslavia dissolved, and many of such countries today are doing very well. You are even better off to live in Slovenia. You are better off to live in Macedonia. You are better off to live in the central Serbia. You are better off to live in Kosovo, Montenegro, Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. All these countries are far better than Nigeria. Even Ukraine, that is currently at war, have 24 hours electricity. Number 2, it still left the Governor General too powerful. They retained control of the Executive Council and other vital sectors of the government. He employed power to veto. Number 3, Latin Constitution promote regional sentiment among Nigerians like the Richard Constitution. Number 4, no provision of the office of the Prime Minister. Number 5, ministers were appointed instead of elected. Number 6, no uniform electoral system, adult male suffrage in the north, universal suffrage in the east and the west. No plans for independence were made. I want you to take note of that word. Number 7. So the reason why we have to fight this to the last man standing is because there was never a plan for an autonomous independent of any of us in that same fraudulent 1953 constitution that was put together by the Yoruba man. And the last one, but not the least, no second chamber in the federal and the eastern level. My name is OLAYOMI Koiki, and we have been listening to a live transmission from London as we continue to talk about the right of the Yoruba people to exit Nigeria, which that right will be respected. As I leave us this morning, remember that if you do not get involved and you are trying still to fix Nigeria, either as part of the Labour Party, part of the PDP, part of the APC, you are just also one of those still putting together the structure. We have what it takes to become an independent country. We have what it takes to move that territory of Yoruba land to become the global power. But the global power doesn't want that. And that is the reason why they're telling us to save Nigeria using all kind of proxies, scholarship, visas, grants, and all such. We have the wealth on this territory known as Yoruba land. We don't need any speeding from the West. And if you think that it is not right, maybe you can put in the comment section. And when I come back again, we'll have more discussion. Thank you so much for those of you that joined. I won't be able to mention anybody's name, but good morning to you all. Please share the broadcast. I'll be out again at the appropriate time. Like I always say, I try not to tell you when I'm out. You can keep that notification bell. This platform remains for self-determination only, and we will use it to make sure that we bring down the last empire of the British, known as Nigeria. My name is OLAYOMI Koiki. Well, we do ask for voluntary support. You can do that by helping us so that we can be able to do more in terms of our media. It's an independent media. We're not funded by any government around the world. Neither are we funded by any political parties. But we are funded by some of you that prefer the alternative to the ones that you listen to either around the world or in Nigeria. How do you support? The account details can be found on our website, www.koikimedia.com, or you can reach out to me just to make sure that you get the right details. You can also be on Twitter. We are also on Instagram. I am no longer on TikTok because TikTok is one of the most biased platforms that doesn't like the truth. I still remain on Facebook, even though the numbers continue to decline because so they don't like the truth. You can reach out to me on musakalam@gmail.com. You can send your question through my website, and our website continues to function with many blogs. I appreciate the Koiki Media team that are working on a daily basis. And as you saw yesterday, we are also trying to advise and encourage our people to go back to farming. So the Koiki Media team started one yesterday. The videos is already out there, and we will continue to encourage many of you. It is in your own interest. Things will get tough before it gets better, and you should all prepare for such. As I say all the time, this platform is not a violent platform, but it has every right to use whatever utterances it wants to use, because that is the only way we can deliver our message to the people that needs to listen. If you listen to the West will not tell you exactly how to get your freedom. They are part of those that created the first problem, and we should also now tell them that we will dissolve Nigeria on our own terms and conditions. We will probably not listen to them, because we've been listening to them for a very long time. We can take a screenshot of this before I bring the final part of saying thank you so much for joining. And when I come back again, it will be the anthem, and I'll be seeing you again. Today is the 27th day, the 28th day of the month of February, and it's just coming up to almost 7 a.m. in London. You can take a snapshot of this benefit of the Yoruba nation.